The night Emily Carter saved the most dangerous man in the city, she was not wearing diamonds, silk, or one of those tiny black dresses the rich women at the Grand Aurelia seemed born knowing how to stand in. She was wearing a Navy hotel blazer that pulled tight across her arms, soft black flats with worn-out heels, and a name tag that said Emily in gold letters, as if the people who snapped their fingers at her actually cared what her name was. She was 34 years old, tired in the deep part of her bones, and she had already been on her feet for 9 hours when Daniel Bennett walked into the lobby and made every man around him forget how to breathe. The Grand Aurelia had been built for people who liked to feel above ordinary life. Its lobby rose 3 stories high, with marble floors polished so bright they reflected every chandelier like trapped stars. White orchids stood in tall glass vases. Gold doors opened silently. The air smelled like lemon polish, expensive perfume, and money old enough to stop explaining itself. On normal nights, Emily knew how to move through that place without being seen, unless someone needed towels, directions, a reservation fixed, or someone to blame. That was part of the job. Smile, listen, apologize for things she had not done, solve problems quietly, disappear again. But charity auction nights were different. On those nights, the hotel pretended it had a soul. There were photographers near the ballroom entrance, velvet ropes outside the private elevators, and security men with earpieces standing beside flower arrangements that cost more than Emily's monthly rent. Politicians shook hands with investors. Wives kissed cheeks they did not like. Men who owned half the city stood beside donation boards and acted humble while cameras caught their best angles. The event was supposed to raise money for children's hospitals, arts programs, and housing projects. No one in that room would ever visit without a press team. Emily stood behind the front desk with a phone tucked between her ear and shoulder, one hand typing a room change, the other pressing 2 fingers against the paper schedule taped beneath the counter. Her manager, Sebastian Crow, had rewritten the staffing plan 3 times that afternoon, then blamed her when valet got crowded and the coat check ran behind. Sebastian liked emergencies because emergencies gave him a reason to speak sharply in public. He was tall, elegant, and thin in a way that made every suit look expensive. His hair was silver at the temples, though he was not old enough for it to be natural, and he smiled at guests as if he had personally invented hospitality. With employees, he saved his charm for witnesses. "Emily," he said from beside the concierge station, not looking up from his tablet. "The Bennett party is arriving. Do not let the lobby look disorganized." Emily looked at the lobby, where 3 auction guests were arguing about seating. One senator's assistant was crying near the restroom, and a woman in a red dress had just threatened to sue because her suite did not have the exact skyline view she had imagined from the website. "I will ask the marble to stand up straighter," Emily said. Sebastian's eyes lifted slowly. Tonight is not the night for humor. Then it picked a bad shift. One of the bellmen coughed into his sleeve to hide a laugh. Sebastian's mouth flattened. Emily returned to the phone. "Yes, Mrs. Calloway, I understand the pillows feel emotional. I will send housekeeping with firmer ones." She hung up before the guest could explain the emotional state of the mattress too. Her lower back ached. Her left ankle had begun doing that dull, pulsing thing it did after too many hours standing. Beneath the desk, her phone lit up with a photo from Lily's after-school program. Emily glanced down and saw her daughter in a purple hoodie, grinning with one front tooth missing, holding up a paper crown covered in glitter. The text underneath was from Mrs. Alvarez, their neighbor, who watched Lily on late nights when Emily worked double shifts. She insisted this is a queen crown, not a princess crown. "Dinner is handled, don't worry." Emily's chest softened so quickly it hurt. She tapped back a heart, then added, "Tell her queens brush their teeth before bed." Another message came almost instantly. She said queens have staff for that. Emily smiled despite herself. The lobby noise dimmed for half a breath. That was Lily's gift. She could turn even the worst hour into something with air in it. Then the front doors opened. Not loudly, not dramatically. No one announced him. No trumpet sounded. No storm cracked above the hotel. Still, the entire lobby changed. Conversations thinned first. Laughter stopped near the bar. The valet captain straightened so fast he almost dropped the key box. 2 hotel security officers near the west hallway looked at each other, then looked away. The senator's assistant stopped crying mid-sniff and stepped closer to the wall. It was the kind of silence that did not arrive because people were impressed. It arrived because people were afraid of being noticed. Daniel Bennett walked in surrounded by 4 men in black suits, but somehow he still looked alone. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark coat that made the white marble behind him look almost too bright. His hair was black, with a slight wave near the front, his face clean-shaven, his expression calm in a way that felt less peaceful than controlled. He did not hurry. Men like him never seemed to hurry. The world moved around them or learned what happened when it did not. His eyes swept the lobby once, not with wonder, not with interest, but with the habit of a man who counted exits before he counted people. Emily knew his name. Everyone did. Daniel Bennett owned restaurants, clubs, shipping companies, construction firms, and at least 3 businesses that existed only on paper and fear. The newspapers called him a private investor. The police called him a person of interest. The city called him Mr. Bennett, if it wanted to stay healthy. There were stories about him, of course. Stories about men who crossed him and suddenly moved away. Stories about warehouse fires no one could explain. Stories about judges who changed their minds after one private dinner. Emily did not know which stories were true. She only knew that when he entered a room, even the arrogant men lowered their voices. His gaze passed over the chandeliers, the auction signs, the guests waiting with champagne, and then stopped on her. It was accidental. At least, it should have been. Emily was behind the front desk, half hidden by a computer monitor, with her hair twisted into a plain clip and one sleeve riding up because the blazer never fit right at the shoulder. She was not the sort of woman men like Daniel Bennett noticed in rooms like that. Women around him looked sculpted. They had smooth voices, smooth hair, smooth lives, or at least enough money to make the cracks shine. Emily had a grocery list in her pocket, a rent reminder in her email, and a small stain on her cuff from the coffee she had spilled during hour 6 of the shift. But his eyes found hers anyway. Dark eyes, sharp, amused by something before he knew what it was. His mouth moved by the smallest amount, not a full smile, not even half of one, just enough to suggest he had looked at all the glittering people in the lobby and somehow decided the most interesting person there was the tired woman behind the desk, who looked like she wanted everyone to go home. Emily stared back for 1 second too long. Then she looked at the space in front of the desk, where Daniel and his bodyguards had stopped directly in the flow of arriving guests. "You are blocking the front desk," she said. The bellman froze. Sebastian turned his head so fast, Emily heard his neck crack. One of Daniel's guards shifted his weight. Another looked at her like she had just stepped into traffic and asked the truck to apologize. Daniel Bennett did not move. His faint smile grew by a dangerous inch. "Am I?" "Yes." Emily clicked her mouse, printed a keycard, and slid it to the guest in front of her. "Unless standing there silently is part of your reservation." For a moment, no one breathed. Then Daniel laughed. Not loudly, not warmly. It was only a quiet breath through his nose, but it changed his whole face for half a second. Something cold loosened. Something human looked out from behind the reputation. Sebastian appeared at Emily's side like a ghost in a suit. "Mr. Bennett," he said, voice smooth with panic under it. "Welcome to the Grand Aurelia. "We are honored to host you this evening." Daniel kept looking at Emily. "Are you?" Sebastian blinked. "Of course. I was asking her." Emily felt Sebastian's warning beside her like heat. "Be careful," it said. "Be smaller. Be sweeter. Be grateful you have a job." Emily had spent too many years being told to make herself smaller. Smaller in rooms. Smaller in pictures. Smaller in appetite. Smaller in opinion. Smaller in joy. Her body had always entered places before her name did, and people decided things about her before she opened her mouth. Lazy. Soft. Simple. Easy to push around. Men like Sebastian loved that first mistake. It made them careless. She looked at Daniel Bennett and said, "I'm honored when guests stand to the side." This time the laugh reached his eyes. "Emily," Sebastian said softly, and somehow her name sounded like a threat. Daniel's gaze dropped to her name tag, then returned to her face. "Emily." He said it like he was testing the shape of it. She did not like how much she noticed. "Mr. Bennett," Sebastian cut in, smiling too hard. "Your private access has been prepared. The auction room is secure. Mr. Sloan has already arrived." At the name, something almost invisible moved across Daniel's face. It vanished before Emily could name it. "Victor is early," Daniel said. Sebastian gave a polite laugh. He said he was eager to support the cause. "Victor Sloan has never supported anything he could not own." The words were calm, but every guard around him heard the blade beneath them. Emily had seen Victor Sloan arrive 20 minutes earlier. He was handsome in the clean, expensive way rich villains always seem to be before people realized what they were looking at. Gray suit, silver watch, smile like a locked door. He had paused by the front desk only long enough to complain that the private elevator smelled of lilies. Emily had apologized. He had looked at her body, then at her name tag, then through her, as if she were furniture with poor posture. Daniel Bennett, for all his darkness, had at least looked directly at her. "Enjoy the auction," Emily said, because that was safer than whatever thought came next. Daniel's eyes stayed on her for another beat. "I will try not to block anything important. You can start with exits and oxygen." One of his guards made a small choking sound. Daniel's smile sharpened. "Noted." Then he moved, and the lobby began breathing again. Sebastian waited until Daniel and his men had reached the private corridor before turning on her. His voice stayed low, because guests were nearby, but low did not mean gentle. "Have you completely lost your sense?" Emily picked up a ringing phone. "Guest services, this is Emily." Sebastian leaned closer. "You do not joke with a man like that." Emily covered the receiver. "A man like that was standing in the way. He is not some tourist from Ohio." "I figured that out when half the lobby started acting like furniture." Sebastian's eyes hardened. "You think being quick makes you valuable. It does not. Discipline makes you valuable. Obedience makes you valuable. Tonight, I need you invisible." Emily thought of Lily in her paper crown. Queens have staff for that. She looked back at the computer. "Then stop standing where guests can see you scolding me." Sebastian's face went still. For 1 second, she wondered if she had pushed too far. Then someone called his name from the ballroom entrance, and he was forced to become charming again. "Do not embarrass this hotel," he said before walking away. Emily watched him go, then whispered, "The hotel has chandeliers shaped like upside-down wedding cakes." It started without me. For the next hour, the Grand Aurelia glittered and lied. The auction began behind closed doors. Staff moved in smooth lines through service corridors, with trays of champagne and small food shaped like jewelry. Emily handled a misplaced diamond bracelet, a guest who believed his suite had been downgraded because the bathroom mirror was unfriendly, and a councilman who tried to take a bottle of champagne from a floral display because he thought anything near a charity sign was complimentary. She fixed all of it. Quietly, efficiently, while Sebastian floated from important person to important person, collecting praise for a machine. Emily and the other workers kept running with sore feet and forced smiles. Every now and then, she saw Daniel Bennett through the glass doors near the auction hall. He stood near the edge of the private room, not in the center, though the center seemed to keep making room for him. Men approached him carefully. Women watched him when they thought no one noticed. Victor Sloan stood near him once, smiling with a glass in his hand. They did not look like friends. They looked like two knives laid side by side on white cloth. Emily did not know why she kept noticing. Maybe because Daniel had laughed when everyone else expected punishment. Maybe because he looked out of place among the polished donors, even though his suit probably cost more than the front desk. Maybe because the most feared man in the city had looked at her like she was not an inconvenience, not a problem, not a body taking up too much room, but a person. She hated how little it took for that to feel rare. Near midnight, the lobby thinned. The first wave of guests moved toward the ballroom for the final bidding event. Security tightened around the private hallway. Emily finally slipped into the staff pantry for water and half a granola bar from her purse. She had just taken one bite when her phone buzzed. A voice message from Lily. Emily smiled before pressing play. "Hi, Mummy," Lily whispered, though whispering made every word louder. "Mrs. Alvarez says I have to sleep, but I wanted to tell you my tooth came out all the way, and I put it under my pillow. If the tooth fairy is busy, it is okay, but she should know I accept cash or art supplies. Also, I love you more than pancakes. Bye." Emily pressed the phone to her chest and closed her eyes. That was her whole world. One little girl with wild curls, strong opinions, and a heart Emily would burn every bridge to protect. She saved the message, finished the granola bar, and walked back into the hall. That was when the glass shattered. It was not a small sound. It exploded through the hotel like a scream made of crystal. Emily turned toward the auction corridor, just as guests began shouting. A woman cried out. A tray hit the floor. Security men rushed toward the private hall, but then stopped, uncertain, because rich people had a special talent for making fear look like etiquette until something was already bleeding. Emily moved before anyone told her to. She pushed through the side service door and entered the hallway outside the private auction room. A glass display case had been smashed near the wall. Silver fragments glittered across the carpet. A charity item, some antique necklace or jeweled watch, lay twisted under a velvet rope. Guests crowded the far end of the hall, pale and whispering. Hotel security stood too close to the walls, hands near radios, eyes searching for someone above their pay grade to make the first decision. Daniel Bennett was on the floor. For 1 second, Emily did not understand what she was seeing. Men like him did not fall. That was the trick of reputation. It made certain people seem less human, as if fear could build a body strong enough to survive anything. But Daniel was on one knee, one hand pressed against the marble, his head lowered. His other hand clutched at his collar. His skin had gone gray under the warm hallway lights. Then he collapsed fully onto his side. The silence that followed was worse than the shattering glass. His guards reached him first, but they did not know what to do. One drew a weapon, another grabbed his phone, a third stared at Daniel's body like touching him might be a crime. The fourth looked at the guests, the broken display, the cameras, the exits. They were trained for bullets, ambushes, betrayal, not for a man suddenly unable to breathe on a hotel floor. "Move," Emily said. No one moved. She pushed between two guards and dropped to her knees beside Daniel. A hand closed around her arm. "Ma'am, step back." Emily looked up at the guard. "Unless you are a paramedic hiding under that suit, let go." He did. Daniel's eyes were half open but unfocused. His breathing came shallow and uneven. A thin line of sweat had appeared at his temple. Emily pressed 2 fingers lightly against the side of his neck. His pulse was there, fast and wrong. "Call emergency services," she said. "Now." One guard snapped into motion. Sebastian's voice cut through the hall. "Emily, what are you doing?" She ignored him and loosened Daniel's tie. The knot was tight. Of course it was. Men like him probably even suffocated in expensive fabric. "Mr. Bennett," she said firmly, "can you hear me?" His eyes moved, but not enough. She leaned closer. "Daniel, I need you to stay with me." One of the guards swore under his breath when she used his first name. Emily did not care. Sebastian came closer, face drained of color beneath his perfect composure. "Do not touch him. Step away immediately. He is having a medical emergency. You are not medical staff. No, I am the only person in this hallway acting like he has a pulse." Sebastian lowered his voice. "This is not your concern. You are involving the hotel in Bennett business." Emily looked at Daniel's face, at the way his jaw tightened as he fought for air. "A dying man on our floor is hotel business." "He is not dying," Sebastian snapped. Daniel's lashes flickered. Emily bent closer. "Good news. My manager says you are not dying, so apparently this is all very inconvenient theater." A faint breath escaped Daniel. Not a laugh exactly. Almost one. His lips moved. Emily leaned in. "What?" His voice came out rough and weak. "Do you always yell at dying men?" Relief hit her so hard she almost laughed. "Only the dramatic ones. You are not allowed to die. I already have enough paperwork tonight." His eyes focused for half a second. There he was. The dangerous man from the lobby, buried beneath pain, but still looking at her like she had surprised him. "Boss," one of the guards said, kneeling near his shoulder. "Was it poison? Were you hit?" Emily caught the word poison and looked at Daniel's hands. No blood, no torn fabric, no obvious wound. His left wrist had a faint red mark just below the cuff, small and curved, like something had pressed there. Not a needle exactly, not a scratch either. She leaned closer, but Sebastian grabbed her shoulder. "That is enough," he hissed. Emily turned on him. "Do not touch me while I am helping him." Behind Sebastian, a man in a gray server jacket slipped through the service corridor door. Emily noticed him because everyone else was looking at Daniel. He did not run. Running would have drawn attention. He simply stepped backward into the service hall and vanished with the smooth confidence of someone who knew which doors were supposed to stay unlocked. Emily's eyes jumped to the ceiling camera above the corridor. It was turned away. The camera should have been aimed directly at the auction hall entrance. Emily knew because she had spent half the evening watching that feed from the front desk while security complained about overtime. Now the black glass eye pointed toward a blank section of wall. Her stomach tightened. "Camera," she said. "What?" Daniel's guard asked. That camera was moved, and a man just left through the service corridor. Gray jacket, dark hair, no tray, no badge that I could see. Sebastian's face changed. It was so fast, most people would have missed it. But Emily Carter had spent years watching faces, watching guests lie about smoking in rooms, watching husbands pretend not to know the women asking for their room numbers, watching rich kids claim the broken lamp was already broken, watching managers smile before cutting hours. Sebastian looked afraid, not shocked, afraid. Then he covered it with anger. "You are making wild accusations during a crisis. I am saying what I saw. You saw nothing useful." Daniel's eyes shifted toward Sebastian. Even on the floor, even pale and struggling, Daniel Bennett heard that. Emily looked back at him. "Stay awake." His mouth moved again. "Bossy. Yes. Rude. Also yes." His fingers twitched near hers. Not touching. Almost. She placed her hand palm down on the floor beside his, close enough for him to know someone was there, not close enough to trap him in comfort he had not asked for. She did not know why she thought that mattered. Maybe because fear made everyone feel alone, even men who came with armed guards. The paramedics arrived in a rush of Navy uniforms, radios, and controlled voices. Emily gave them everything she knew, fast and clear, breathing irregular. Pulse rapid, no visible wound, possible exposure near wrist, sudden collapse after glass break. Unknown man left service corridor. Camera moved. One paramedic looked at her with more respect than Sebastian had shown her in 3 years. "You staff?" he asked. "Guest services supervisor." "You did good." Sebastian's jaw tightened. Daniel was lifted onto a stretcher. His guards surrounded him immediately. As they rolled him toward the service elevator, his head turned slightly. His eyes found Emily one more time. There was pain in them, anger too, but underneath both, something more dangerous. Recognition, like he had seen her now. Not the name tag, not the blazer, her. Then the elevator doors closed. The hallway erupted. Guests began talking all at once. Someone demanded a refund. Someone else wanted to know if the auction would continue. A councilman insisted his wife had been traumatized and needed a suite upgrade. Security blocked off the broken display. Sebastian began issuing orders in a tone that made it sound as if he had personally carried Daniel Bennett back from the dead. Emily stayed kneeling for 1 second longer than necessary. Her hands were shaking. She looked down and saw a tiny dark smear on the marble where Daniel's wrist had rested. Not blood. Something faint, almost brown, like residue from a chemical or dye. She reached for a napkin from a fallen cocktail tray and pressed it gently to the mark before anyone could step on it. She folded the napkin and slipped it into her blazer pocket. She did not know why. That was not entirely true. She knew exactly why. Because the camera had moved. Because the man had left. Because Sebastian had looked afraid. Because Daniel Bennett had collapsed in a hotel full of men who wanted something from him, and almost everyone had been too scared to touch him. "Emily," Sebastian said behind her. She stood slowly. His face was smooth again. "Too smooth. My office. Now. I need to finish the incident report. You are finished." The words landed before she understood them. Sebastian turned and walked toward the management corridor. Emily followed because some part of her still believed this was a warning, a suspension, a lecture she could survive by staying calm. She had survived worse than Sebastian Crow in a tailored suit. She had survived Lily's father walking out with half the savings and all the apologies he never meant. She had survived postpartum loneliness, overdue notices, fever nights, school fees, and the quiet humiliation of asking landlords for one more week. She had survived doctors using the word obese, like it explained every feeling she ever had, as if pain could not exist in a body like hers without being her own fault. She could survive a manager with a tablet, but when they entered his office, Sebastian closed the door and did not sit. "You violated direct orders," he said. Emily stared at him. A man collapsed. "You interfered with a high-risk guest. I helped him breathe. You touched Daniel Bennett without authorization." Emily almost laughed. It came out hollow. Was I supposed to ask his unconscious body to sign something first? "This is not clever, Emily." "No, Sebastian. It is simple. He needed help. I helped. You endangered this hotel. I protected a guest. You inserted yourself into a criminal matter." He was on the floor. "You are a guest services supervisor, not a detective, not a nurse, not security. And yet somehow I was the only person who noticed the camera was turned." His eyes flashed. There it was again, fear, then fury rushing in to hide it. "You will not mention that again," he said. Emily's pulse slowed in a strange way. Her body knew danger before her mind finished naming it. "Why?" Sebastian stepped closer. Because you are done here. The office seemed to tilt. Emily looked at him, waiting for the rest. The correction, the explanation, the smaller punishment. It did not come. You are terminating me? Effective immediately. For helping someone during a medical emergency? For violating protocol, disobeying management, compromising guest safety, interfering with security response, and creating liability during one of the most important private events this hotel has ever hosted. The words sounded prepared, too prepared. Emily gripped the back of the chair in front of her. Sebastian, I need this job. I am aware. My daughter needs this job. His face did not soften. That is not the hotel's responsibility. She is 8. And you should have considered her before involving yourself with Daniel Bennett. Emily stared at him. There were moments when fear became so large it turned quiet. She thought of rent due in 10 days, Lily's school trip payment. The electric bill folded in the kitchen drawer, the inhaler refill she had been meaning to pick up, the groceries stretched thin because payday was Friday and Lily was growing too fast for last winter's coat. I saved his life, Emily said, and her voice was smaller than she wanted. Sebastian adjusted his cuffs. You embarrassed the hotel. No, I embarrassed you. His eyes hardened. Security will escort you to collect your things. The shame hit after the fear. That was how it always happened. First came survival. Then came the hot, awful feeling of being watched while surviving. 2 guards walked her to the staff locker room, not because she was dangerous, but because Sebastian wanted her to feel removed, like something broken, like a spill being cleaned before guests saw. Mara from housekeeping saw her and stopped with a stack of towels in her arms. Em? Emily tried to smile. I am taking an unexpected vacation. Mara's face fell. No, it is fine. It was not fine. Her hands shook as she opened her locker. Inside were her sneakers, a folded hoodie, a pack of gum, Lily's old drawing of the 2 of them standing under a yellow sun, and a spare pair of earrings she never remembered to wear. She put everything into a tote bag with the hotel logo on it. Then she took off her name tag. That was the thing that almost broke her. The name tag had been scratched at the corner and ugly under the gold plate, but it was hers. For 3 years, it had meant rent, food, shoes, birthday cupcakes, flu medicine, field trip forms. It had meant she could tell Lily, we are okay, and not always be lying. She held it for a moment, then placed it inside the locker instead of taking it. She did not want Sebastian to say she stole hotel property. The guard walked her through the service exit, not the lobby. Of course. No one removed from paradise got to leave through the front door. Outside, the city was cold and bright with late-night rain. The kind of rain that did not fall hard enough for drama, just steady enough to make everything miserable. Emily stood beneath the back awning with her tote bag against her chest, while taxis hissed over wet pavement. Behind her, the Grand Aurelia glowed golden and untouched, already healing over the space where she had been. She made it half a block before her knees gave out near a stone bench by the side entrance. She sat down hard. For a while, she did not cry. She simply breathed. In, out, in, out. She looked at the wet sidewalk, at the reflection of hotel lights broken into pieces beneath passing tires. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Probably Sebastian sending official paperwork. Probably scheduling asking why she was not clocked out correctly. Probably life, already reaching for the next piece of her. It was Mrs. Alvarez. Lily is asleep. Tooth fairy situation, unresolved but hopeful. Emily pressed her fist against her mouth. A sound came out of her. Small and broken, and embarrassing, even though no one was close enough to hear. She typed 3 different replies and erased them all. Finally she wrote, "Thank you, I may be late." Then she opened her banking app, because fear liked numbers. The balance looked back at her with no mercy. She calculated rent, groceries, Lily's school lunch account, the bus pass, the phone bill. She calculated how long she could last without pay. She calculated what she could sell. She calculated whether the landlord would listen this time. She calculated and calculated until the numbers became a room with no door. Her phone rang. Lily. Emily wiped her face so fast it hurt, then answered with a smile in her voice, because motherhood taught women impossible magic. "Hi, baby." "Mummy," Lily whispered. "The tooth fairy came early." Emily blinked. "Did she?" "Yes. Mrs. Alvarez said maybe she has a lot of appointments tonight." "That sounds right." She left $5 and a note that said Queens need sleep. Emily closed her eyes. Mrs. Alvarez. Sweet, nosy, wonderful Mrs. Alvarez. That is very wise. "Are you coming home?" Emily looked back at the hotel. Through the glowing windows, she could see people still moving in the ballroom. Drinking, laughing, donating money they would never miss. "Yes," she said softly, "I am coming home." "Are you okay?" Emily swallowed. She could lie. She had lied before. Small lies. Safe lies. "Mummy is just tired. Mummy ate at work. Mummy loves her old coat. Mummy does not mind when people stare." But Lily had her eyes. Too observant, too gentle, too quick to know when the world had touched her mother too roughly. "I had a hard night," Emily said. Lily was quiet. Then, in her serious queen voice, she said, "Do you need pancakes?" Emily laughed and cried at the same time. "Maybe tomorrow. Then tomorrow is pancakes. Deal. I love you more than pancakes. I love you more than rent." "What?" "Nothing. Sleep." After Lily hung up, Emily sat in the rain until her hair began sticking to her cheeks. She reached into her blazer pocket for a tissue and touched the folded napkin instead. The residue from the marble had stained one corner. She stared at it. A sane person would throw it away. A sane person would go home, update her resume, and stay as far from Daniel Bennett as humanly possible. A sane person would remember that Mafia business swallowed ordinary people whole and did not bother to spit out the bones. Emily folded the napkin more carefully and placed it inside the small zip pocket of her bag. Then she stood. She had taken 3 steps toward the bus stop when 2 black SUVs pulled up outside the emergency entrance behind the hotel. Emily froze. Men got out first. Daniel's men. She recognized one from the hallway, the guard who had grabbed her arm and then let go when she told him to. His face was hard, but his eyes scanned the street with something close to panic. Another guard opened the rear door. A paramedic stepped out. Then Daniel Bennett himself appeared beneath the awning. He should have been in a hospital. He looked like a man who had escaped one. His coat was gone, his white shirt was open at the throat, and one sleeve had been pushed up where medical tape still marked his arm. He was pale, but standing, barely. A guard hovered too close, and Daniel gave him one look that made the man step back. He braced one hand briefly against the SUV door, then straightened, as if weakness was an insult he refused to let touch him twice. Sebastian came rushing from the side entrance, all polished concern. "Mr. Bennett, you should not be standing. We were told you had been transported." Daniel looked at him. "You were told many things." Sebastian's smile flickered. "The hotel is cooperating fully. We have secured the area, and I assure you we are conducting an internal review." Daniel's gaze moved past him, across the wet street, to Emily. For a second, she forgot the rain, forgot the bus stop, forgot the fact that she had just lost her job because of him. He saw her, not as staff, not as a name tag, not as part of the hotel, as the woman sitting outside with wet cheeks and a tote bag full of everything she had been allowed to keep. His face changed. Only slightly, but enough. He turned back to Sebastian. "Where is the woman who saved me?" Sebastian went still. Emily could not hear what he said next, but she saw his mouth move. She saw the graceful lie form before it reached the air. She saw Daniel listen without blinking. Then Daniel's head turned again, slowly, toward her. This time, Sebastian turned too. Their eyes met across the rain, and Emily understood, with a cold little twist in her stomach, that the night was not over. It had only opened a door. She should have run. She did not. Daniel crossed the street without an umbrella, his guards spreading around him like shadows. Cars slowed. Rain darkened his shirt at the shoulders. He moved with the careful control of a man holding himself upright by will alone. Emily stood frozen near the curb, tote bag clutched in one hand, the hidden napkin pressing like a secret against her side. When he reached her, he stopped far enough away that she did not have to step back. It was such a small thing, such an unexpected thing. Men with power often took up space without asking. Daniel Bennett, half poisoned or whatever he was, stood in the rain and left room between them. "You were fired," he said. It was not a question. Emily lifted her chin. "That is usually what it means when security walks you out with your belongings." His eyes moved to the tote bag, to her wet hair, to her face, where she had not managed to hide every trace of crying. Something cold passed through his expression. "Because of me. Because I touched you without filling out the proper haunted paperwork." His mouth almost moved. "Almost. You saved my life. So people keep saying, do you disagree?" Emily looked behind him. Sebastian stood under the awning with 2 security officers, watching them like a man who had just seen a locked drawer open by itself. "I think I made my life harder," she said. Daniel was quiet for a moment. "That is not the same thing." "No," Emily said, "but it feels close tonight." Rain slipped down the side of his face. One of his guards stepped forward with an umbrella. Daniel ignored him. "What did you see?" he asked. Emily's fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. There it was, not gratitude, not apology, the real question. She should have said nothing. She should have gone home to Lily, made pancakes in the morning, and searched job postings until her eyes burned. She should have let dangerous men destroy each other in expensive rooms where ordinary people only cleaned the floor afterward. But she thought of the camera, turned toward the wall. She thought of the man in the gray jacket. She thought of Sebastian saying, "You saw nothing useful." And she thought of Daniel Bennett on the marble, trying to breathe while everyone else stood around waiting for permission to care whether he lived. "I saw enough to know someone wanted me gone from that hallway," she said. Daniel's eyes darkened, and from the hotel, Emily did not answer. His gaze lowered briefly to the bag at her side. "You kept something." Her heart jumped. He saw it. Of course he saw it. Maybe men like him stayed alive by noticing where people held their secrets. Emily kept her face still. "You are very direct for a man who almost died 20 minutes ago." "I did not almost die. You were on the floor making dramatic breathing choices." This time the smile came, small, tired, real enough to be dangerous. Then he swayed. Barely, but Emily saw it. So did his guard, who stepped forward. "Boss." Daniel lifted one hand. The guard stopped. Emily sighed. "You are impossible. I have been called worse. I am sure you collect it." She looked at his face. The pale skin, the stubborn mouth, the sweat returning near his hairline. Whatever pride held him upright was running on fumes. "There is a bench," she said. "I do not need a bench. You need a hospital. I left one." That was not a smart answer. His eyes sharpened faintly, amused despite the pain. Do you speak to everyone like this? No, Emily said. Most people have the decency to collapse only once per evening. Something flickered in his gaze again. That same strange recognition. Then, to the visible shock of his guards and the absolute horror of Sebastian watching from the awning, Daniel Bennett let Emily Carter guide him to the stone bench beside the Grand Aurelia's side entrance. He sat slowly, jaw tight, one hand braced on the wet stone. Emily stood in front of him, arms folded, trying not to think about how absurd this looked. The most feared man in the city, sitting under the rain because a fired hotel supervisor told him to. His guards looked like they wanted to argue with gravity itself. Daniel looked up at her. You should go home. I was trying. I need to know what you saw. I know. And you need to stay away from me. Emily let out a short laugh. That is confusing, because those two sentences seem to be fighting each other. They are. Which one is winning? He looked at her for a long moment. Behind him, police lights flashed faintly against the hotel windows. Guests inside, probably pressed close to the glass now, whispering about the Mafia boss and the woman from the front desk. Sebastian would already be preparing a version of the story where Emily was unstable, disobedient, emotional, reckless. Maybe he would win. Men like Sebastian often did, because they knew how to speak in rooms where working women were only allowed to apologize. Daniel's voice lowered. For tonight, go home to your daughter. Emily went still. The rain seemed to pause around her. How do you know I have a daughter? His expression did not change, but something in his eyes told her he regretted saying it too quickly. I know many things. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. Emily stepped back. Did you investigate me? No. Do not lie to me. The guard beside him shifted, but Daniel raised his hand again. No, Daniel said, more carefully. I heard you on the phone in the hallway before the auction. You said queens brush their teeth before bed. Emily's mouth closed. That was worse, somehow. Not because it was cruel, because it was gentle, because he had remembered. Because while the whole lobby lowered its eyes around him, he had noticed a tired mother texting her child. Daniel stood before she could answer, too quickly. His face tightened, but he stayed upright. You will be contacted tomorrow, he said. By who? Someone who can return what was taken from you. I do not want Mafia charity. His eyes held hers. Good. I do not offer charity. What do you offer? Answers. Emily should have hated that. She almost did. But answers were the one thing she had never been able to afford. Daniel looked toward Sebastian under the awning, and for the first time that night, Emily felt what it meant to have Daniel Bennett's attention turn away from you and become a weapon pointed at someone else. Sebastian took one small step back. Daniel's voice stayed quiet. Go home, Emily Carter. She frowned. You know my last name too. The hotel gave it to me when they tried to explain why firing you was necessary. Of course they did. Emily. Her name again. Lower this time. Not a command exactly. Not soft either. She looked at him. His face was pale, unreadable, rain-slicked and dangerous beneath the city lights. But his eyes were different from the rest of him. His eyes looked tired, angry, alive because she had refused to let him become a body on marble while important people watched. Keep the thing you found safe, he said. Her blood chilled. She did not ask how he knew. Daniel turned and walked back toward the SUVs. His guards closed around him. Sebastian hurried forward, speaking fast, but Daniel passed him without slowing. Emily stood by the curb until the vehicles disappeared into traffic. Only then did she reach into her bag and touch the folded napkin. The rain kept falling. The hotel kept glowing. Somewhere across the city, Lily slept with $5 under her pillow and a queen crown on her nightstand. Emily had no job, no plan, and a secret in her bag that might belong to a man powerful enough to ruin her life or change it. She took the bus home because she could not afford a cab. No one looked at her twice. That almost made her laugh. By the time she reached her building, the sky had begun turning the dull gray of very early morning. Her apartment sat above a dry cleaner and a closed bakery, 4 floors up, with no elevator and a hallway light that flickered when the weather changed. Emily climbed slowly, one hand on the rail, her body heavy with exhaustion. She paused outside her door and listened. Silence. Safe silence. She unlocked the door carefully and stepped inside. Mrs. Alvarez was asleep in the armchair, with the television low and a blanket over her knees. Emily removed her wet shoes, paid her with cash she now needed more than ever, and kissed her cheek when the older woman woke enough to grumble that Emily was too cold and too thinly dressed, which was Mrs. Alvarez's favorite lie, because Emily was not thin anything. After Mrs. Alvarez left, Emily went to Lily's room. Her daughter slept sideways across the bed, curls covering half her face, one arm wrapped around a stuffed rabbit with only one ear. The paper queen crown sat on the nightstand beside the tooth fairy note. Emily stood there for a long time. This was why she had helped Daniel Bennett. Not because he was powerful, because one day Lily might fall somewhere, and Emily needed to believe the world still had people who would kneel without asking whether she was important enough to save. Emily touched Lily's curls, then walked to the kitchen. She took the folded napkin from her bag and placed it inside an old coffee tin behind the oatmeal. Then she sat at the small table and finally let herself shake. Morning arrived anyway. It always did. Rude and bright and completely uninterested in whether a person had slept. Lily woke up cheerful, toothless, and determined to make pancakes shaped like crowns. Emily helped her stir batter while answering questions about why her eyes looked puffy and whether queens were allowed to skip school if their mothers seemed sad. "No," Emily said, flipping a pancake that looked more like a damaged cloud than a crown. Queens value education. Queens also value syrup. That part is true. For an hour, life almost felt normal. Then someone knocked on the apartment door. Not Mrs. Alvarez's quick little knock. Not the landlord's heavy fist. This knock was calm. 3 even sounds, polite, but certain someone would answer. Emily turned off the stove. Lily looked up from her plate. Is that the tooth fairy? At this hour, she would need a better union. Emily wiped her hands on a towel and walked to the door. Through the peephole, she saw black fabric, broad shoulders, and flowers. Not nice flowers from a grocery store bucket. Expensive flowers. White roses and blue hydrangeas, wrapped in thick paper, held by a man who looked like he would rather be carrying a weapon. Daniel Bennett stood in her hallway. He looked better than he had in the rain, which still did not mean good. His face had color again, but his mouth was set in a line that suggested he had argued with every doctor in the city, and won through pure unpleasantness. Behind him, one guard waited near the stairwell, trying to look like he was not terrifying the neighbor's cat. Emily opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. Daniel looked at the chain, then at her. Good. What is good? You use the chain. You came to my apartment at breakfast with funeral flowers. I am feeling very pro-chain. He glanced down at the flowers, as if surprised to find them in his hand. They are not funeral flowers. They are white roses, held by a Mafia boss who almost died last night. The flowers are confused at best. A sound came from him, almost a laugh. Behind Emily, Lily's chair scraped. "Mummy?" Lily called. "Who is it?" Daniel's expression changed so subtly, Emily might have missed it if she had not already learned the shape of small things. The coldness around him pulled inward, away from the doorway, away from the child's voice. Emily stepped farther into the gap. "No one, baby." Eat your pancake. Daniel lowered his voice. I will not come in. That is the first smart thing you have said. I came to apologize. Emily stared at him. He looked like the words had cost him more than the poisoning. For which part? She asked. Getting me fired, appearing in my hallway, or making me explain to my daughter why a very serious man brought dramatic flowers to breakfast. All of it. You forgot almost dying on my shift. That too. Silence sat between them. The hallway smelled like old carpet, rain in the walls, and warm pancakes from behind her. Daniel Bennett did not belong there. He belonged in black cars, locked rooms, expensive danger, and whispered warnings. But there he stood, holding flowers badly, looking at Emily Carter like her opinion had become something he could not ignore. He lifted the bouquet slightly. I did not choose these. I can tell. My assistant said they were appropriate. Your assistant has never met a single mother before coffee. No, Daniel said. Probably not. Emily should have closed the door. Instead, she looked at his wrist. The mark was covered now by his cuff, but she knew where it was. She also knew the napkin sat hidden in a coffee tin 3 steps behind her, carrying proof of something someone had wanted erased. Daniel saw her glance. His voice dropped. What you noticed last night matters. Emily's hand tightened on the door. Emily, he said quietly, someone tried to kill me at the Grand Aurelia, and I think you are the only person outside my world who saw how. Behind her, Lily began humming through a mouthful of pancake, unaware that the world had just shifted again. Emily looked at the most feared man in the city through a chain lock and thought of Rent, of Sebastian's face, of the camera turned away, of a man in a grey jacket disappearing into a service corridor, of Daniel on marble asking if she yelled at dying men. Then she said the only honest thing she could. I am not letting Mafia business into my kitchen. Daniel's eyes held hers. No, he said. Then we will start in the hallway. Daniel Bennett said they would start in the hallway, as if hallway conversations with Mafia bosses were normal things, as if Emily Carter had not been making pancakes 5 minutes ago with flour on her sleeve and panic quietly sitting behind her ribs. He stood outside her apartment door with white roses in one hand and danger wrapped around him like a tailored coat, and somehow the most ridiculous part was still the flowers. Emily looked at them again through the gap in the chain. They were too perfect for her hallway, too clean for the stained carpet and chipped paint and old light fixture that buzzed whenever the weather turned damp. They looked like they had been raised in a glass room by people who whispered apologies to soil. Daniel looked like he had never carried flowers in his life and did not trust them to stay harmless. You understand how strange this is, Emily said. Daniel looked down at the bouquet again. The flowers, yes. No, you. Here, at my door. Talking about murder while my daughter is eating pancakes shaped like failed royalty. From inside the apartment, Lily called, "They are crowns." Emily closed her eyes. Successful royalty. Daniel's mouth twitched, but he did not look past Emily. He kept his gaze on her face, and his body angled slightly away from the open part of the door, as if he knew exactly how frightening a man like him could look to a child who had never invited him in. That carefulness annoyed Emily because it made him harder to dismiss. It would have been easier if he had pushed, ordered, charmed, threatened, or acted like the world owed him an open door. Instead, he stood there and waited, bleeding quiet patience into the hallway. "I can leave," he said. That would be the smartest choice. Yes. Neither of them moved. Emily hated that she did not want him to leave before answering the questions he had dropped at her feet. Someone had tried to kill him in her hotel. Someone had moved a camera, used the service corridor, and left a strange mark on the floor beside his wrist. Sebastian had fired her before she could write a full report. Daniel had somehow known she kept something. Every sensible part of her wanted to shut the door, lock it twice, hug Lily, and pretend last night had been one bad storm passing through. But Emily had never survived by pretending clouds were not clouds. She survived by noticing which direction the rain was coming from. She slid the chain off, but kept one hand on the door. "You get the hallway, not the kitchen, not the living room, not one step inside unless I say so." Daniel gave a single nod. "Understood. And lower your voice. Understood. And stop holding those flowers like they are evidence from a crime scene." He looked at the bouquet. "What should I do with them?" Emily almost smiled. "Almost. Set them down." Daniel placed the flowers carefully on the small table beside her door, next to a chipped ceramic bowl full of keys, loose buttons, and Lily's hair ties. The flowers looked even more absurd there. Emily stepped into the hallway and pulled the apartment door nearly closed behind her, leaving it open only enough that she could still hear Lily humming at the table. Daniel's guard straightened near the stairwell. Emily looked at him. He looked away, which was probably the closest thing to polite that men in his profession managed before breakfast. Daniel noticed. "He can wait downstairs." "No," Emily said. "He can stay where I can see him. I don't like hidden things right now." Daniel studied her for half a second, then turned his head. "Marco, stay visible." The guard nodded once. Emily folded her arms. "So, someone tried to kill you?" "Yes. At the hotel." "Yes. And you came here because I noticed something?" "Yes. You know, when normal people survive a medical emergency, they send a thank you card and maybe a muffin basket. I was told flowers were better. They lied to you. That is becoming a theme." That sentence landed more heavily than the rest. Emily saw it in his eyes, the controlled anger under his calm. Last night was not just an attack. It was betrayal. Men like Daniel did not walk into public rooms without knowing the shape of every threat, every exit, every smiling enemy. Someone had gotten close enough to make him fall. Someone had done it in front of witnesses and cameras and rich people with phones. Whoever it was had wanted more than his death. They had wanted the room to see him break. "What happened to you?" Emily asked. Daniel's face closed a little. "I was exposed to something." "That is a very expensive way of saying poisoned." "Not exactly." Then cheaply. His gaze sharpened with that faint amusement she was starting to recognize, the kind that came like a match struck in a dark room and vanished before it could warm anything. A contact toxin, fast-acting. Not designed to kill immediately, designed to weaken me long enough for the next step. Emily felt the hallway narrow. What next step? That depends on who gave the order. Victor Sloan? Daniel said nothing. Silence from him was not empty. It had weight. Emily remembered Victor's gray suit, the silver watch, the cold way he had looked through her at the hotel desk. He was at the auction. So were a lot of men who would benefit from my death. Yes, but your face changed when Sebastian said Victor was early. Daniel's eyes fixed on hers. You saw that. I work guest services. Faces are half the job. Most people do not notice my face. That sounds lonely. The words came out before she could stop them. Daniel went still, not offended, not pleased, just still, as if she had placed a hand on a locked door and heard something move inside. Emily looked away first, because she had no intention of feeling sorry for a man whose name made half the city whisper. Sympathy was dangerous. Sympathy made women ignore teeth until they were already bleeding. Daniel's voice softened by one careful degree. Victor Sloan has been trying to buy pieces of the city I do not sell. Docks, clubs, political people, Emily said, remembering the whispers from auction staff, the bits of conversation she had overheard near elevators, that kind of thing. His expression changed again. You listen. People talk around hotel staff like we are wallpaper with shoes. And what did the wallpaper hear? Emily leaned against the wall across from him, keeping the apartment door in the corner of her eye. Victor wanted a private meeting with 2 councilmen before the auction. Sebastian gave him access to the back lounge, even though that lounge was supposed to be closed after 8. One of the security cameras went down near the West Service Hall around 10:30. The head of hotel security said it was a maintenance issue. He looked sweaty when he said it. There was a man in a gray server jacket outside the private corridor, right before you collapsed. I saw him leave through the service door, but he had no tray, no gloves, no badge, and he walked like he knew he would not be stopped. Daniel listened without interrupting. Emily had been interrupted all her life by men who thought waiting was something only other people should do, so his silence was almost more unsettling than his danger. He did not rush her. He did not correct her. He simply absorbed each piece like she was handing him bullets, and he was loading them one by one. And the camera, he said. It had been turned toward the wall. It was not like that earlier. You are sure? Emily gave him a look. Mr. Bennett, I spent 4 hours watching that hallway feed while telling guests where the restroom was. I am sure. Daniel. What? My name is Daniel. I know your name. You keep saying Mr. Bennett like I am a guest asking for extra towels. You are standing in my hallway at breakfast after being maybe poisoned at my workplace and getting me fired. Formality is all I have left. He looked at her for a moment, then nodded as if that was fair. What did you keep? Emily's hand went still against her arm. There it was again, too precise. She could lie. She should lie. But he already knew, and she had a feeling Daniel Bennett respected lies only when they were good enough to be useful. Something from the floor. May I see it? No. His eyes narrowed slightly. No. No. You are not the only person allowed to be suspicious. It may be dangerous. So are you. Daniel accepted that without blinking. Fair. Emily had expected him to demand it. She had expected his guard to step forward, his voice to harden, the hallway to become smaller. But Daniel only stood there, pale and tired and too controlled, and let her keep the one thing she had. That bothered her more than a threat would have. He reached into the inside pocket of his coat. Emily stiffened. Daniel noticed and moved slowly, taking out a small white card between 2 fingers. This is a number. It goes only to one person. Her name is Naomi. She is my attorney, not one of my soldiers. If you decide to have the residue tested, call her, not the police, not the hotel, not anyone connected to the city health department without someone you trust beside you. Emily stared at the card but did not take it. You think I trust your attorney? No, I think you trust no one. That may keep you alive. That is the worst compliment I have ever received. I have not had much practice. Despite herself, Emily took the card. It was thick, plain, and expensive in a quiet way. No logo, no title. Just Naomi Valles, and a number printed in black ink. Daniel's gaze moved briefly toward her apartment door. Lily was now singing to herself, off-key and joyful, some made-up song about syrup kingdoms and breakfast law. Emily watched his face closely. He did not smile. He did something stranger. The hard edges of him pulled back even more, as if her daughter's voice had created a line he refused to cross. Your daughter cannot go to school today, he said. Emily's stomach dropped. Excuse me? If Sebastian helped cover an attempted murder, then he knows you saw too much. If Victor knows you kept anything, he may try to scare you before you understand what you have. No. Daniel's eyebrows lowered. No? No. You do not get to come here and tell me my daughter cannot go to school because your enemies might decide we are useful. My enemies already decided that last night. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice until it almost shook. Listen carefully. I worked very hard to give Lily a life that feels normal. She goes to school. She has friends. She loses teeth. She makes weird pancakes. She does not live in fear because grown men in expensive coats cannot stop trying to own the city. Daniel took the anger without flinching. I am trying to keep her safe. And I am telling you that safety without choice is just another locked room. His face changed. It was not dramatic. His eyes simply darkened, not with anger, but with recognition, as if something she said had struck a place already bruised. "You are right," he said. Emily had been ready for an argument. The apology took the air out of her. Daniel continued, "I said it badly. Your daughter should not be punished for my war. But until I know who inside the hotel gave access to the attacker, I would like permission to place someone outside her school. Far outside. No contact. No approach. No frightening her. If you say no, I will not do it." Emily studied him. There were men who said permission like a trick. Daniel did not. At least not this time. She could still feel the weight of what he was, all that violence behind the careful voice. But careful mattered. Careful was not nothing. "What would that look like?" she asked. "One car near the block. One woman inside. Her name is Tessa, former military police. She has 2 daughters and hates me most days, which I consider a useful character trait." Emily did not want to laugh. "You hire people who hate you? I trust them more than people who want me pleased." That was unfortunately sensible. Emily glanced back through the door. Lily had gone quiet, probably listening. Emily stepped inside for a moment and found her daughter standing by the kitchen table with syrup on her chin and suspicion in her eyes. "Is the flower man bad?" Lily whispered. Emily crouched in front of her. "I don't know yet." Lily looked toward the door. "He sounds sad." Emily's throat tightened. Children noticed the strangest true things. "He is complicated." That means yes and no at the same time. "Pretty much." "Is he why you cried?" Emily brushed a curl from Lily's face. "A lot happened last night. Did you lose your job?" Emily froze. Lily's face was too serious for 8 years old, too careful. Emily hated that. Hated every bill, every late night, every adult problem that had taught her daughter to read silence. "I did," Emily said softly. Lily's eyes filled fast. "Because of me." "What? No. Baby, no." Emily pulled her close. "Never because of you. But you work there for me. I work everywhere for us. That is different." Lily held on tight. "Are we going to be okay?" Emily closed her eyes over her daughter's hair. She wanted to say yes with the full power of a mother's promise, but promises had become expensive too. "We are going to figure it out," she whispered. "That is what queens do," Lily sniffed. "With pancakes?" "With pancakes." When Emily stepped back into the hallway, Daniel looked toward her face and did not ask what had been said. She appreciated that more than she wanted to. "You can put your woman near the school," Emily said, "but if my daughter sees her, hears from her, or comes home scared, I will make your life deeply irritating." "I believe you." "Good. Also, I am walking Lily there myself. No black car, no dramatic escort, no man named Marco lurking by the crosswalk like a funeral statue." Marco looked personally wounded near the stairwell. Daniel nodded. "Tessa will text you a photo of herself and the vehicle. You will have her number. You can dismiss her at any time." Emily hated how reasonable he was being. It made her feel like she was agreeing to something instead of being cornered, and that felt almost more dangerous because agreement put part of the responsibility in her hands. After Lily finished breakfast, Emily helped her brush her teeth, fixed her curls, and packed her backpack with the school folder, lunch, and the tooth fairy note Lily wanted to show everyone. Daniel waited in the hallway the entire time, not knocking, not rushing. Just there, a shadow at the edge of their normal life. When Lily came out, she stopped short. Daniel looked down at her. Lily looked up at him. Emily held her breath. Lily studied his black coat, serious face, and the flowers on the hall table. Then she said, "You need a brighter tie." Marco made another strangled sound from the stairwell. Daniel looked at Emily, as if asking whether this required an answer. Emily smiled, despite herself. She has opinions. So I see. Daniel looked back at Lily. What color? Purple or yellow, but not both unless you are going to a party. I will remember that. Lily narrowed her eyes. Are you making my mom sad? Emily opened her mouth, but Daniel answered first. I hope not. That is not a no. No, Daniel said, after a pause. It is not. Lily seemed to respect the honesty, though not enough to smile. Then do better. Daniel bowed his head once. Not joking, not mocking. I will try. Emily had to look away because the moment hit somewhere tender and unwelcome. Lily took her hand, and they walked down the stairs together, Daniel following several steps behind, with Marco far enough back to keep the neighbors from calling every cousin they had. Outside, the morning had cleared into a pale blue brightness that made last night's rain feel almost imagined. The city looked ordinary. Buses hissed at curbs. A man argued with a parking meter. Someone's dog barked from a window. The world had a rude way of continuing after it tilted. On the walk to school, Lily talked about her tooth, a boy named Carter who cheated at spelling games, and whether queens had to pay taxes. Emily answered as normally as she could, while noticing every parked car, every person who looked too still, every reflection in store windows. A dark sedan sat half a block from the school. A woman with short brown hair sat behind the wheel, wearing a green jacket and drinking coffee from a paper cup. Emily's phone buzzed with a photo and a message. Tessa, northeast corner. I will not approach unless requested. Emily looked at the woman. Tessa lifted 2 fingers from her coffee cup in a tiny wave, then went back to watching the street. Lily noticed nothing. Thank God. At the school gate, Lily hugged Emily tighter than usual. Are you going to find a new job today? Emily kissed the top of her head. I am going to start figuring things out. That means yes and no again. It means probably. Mommy? Yeah? Don't let the flower man boss you. Emily smiled. Never. Lily ran inside, backpack bouncing, crown pancake crumbs probably still on her sleeve. Emily stood at the gate until her daughter disappeared through the front doors. Only then did the full fear return. It came in quietly, like cold water under a door. Last night had reached Lily's school. Not directly. Not yet. But close enough that Emily could feel it breathing. Daniel waited across the street beside a black SUV, hands in his coat pockets, face unreadable. He had not approached the gate. He had not tried to watch Lily too closely. He had kept the line exactly where Emily had drawn it. She crossed to him. Your guard stays only during school hours, she said. Tessa is not my guard. She is yours. I did not ask for ownership language. His mouth tightened, but he nodded. She stays during school hours. And then what? Then I return you to your apartment. No. Emily. No. I am not hiding in my apartment all day while dangerous men play chess with my rent money. I need work. I need to know if Sebastian officially fired me for cause. I need my final paycheck. I need to file unemployment if I can. I need my name not dragged through whatever story he is telling people. Daniel looked toward the school, then back to her. What do you want to do first? Again, not a command, a question. Emily felt something shift, a small, reluctant space opening between distrust and decision. I want to go back to the hotel. No. She raised an eyebrow. Daniel exhaled slowly. That was badly timed. Spectacularly. It is not safe. Neither is being broke. I can fix the job. I do not want you to fix my job. You should not have lost it. No, I should not have. But if I let you snap your fingers and put me back behind that desk, everyone will say I slept with the devil and got promoted. Daniel's eyes cooled. Anyone who says that will regret it. And there it is. Emily pointed at him. That exact thing. You cannot threaten every person who talks badly about me. I can. You cannot if you want me anywhere near you. His jaw worked once. That rule seemed physically painful for him. Fine. Say it like you mean it. I will not threaten every person who talks badly about you. Good. Only some. Daniel. He looked away, annoyed with himself, or with her, maybe both. I will try. That was terrible. It was honest. Emily should not have liked that answer. They drove to the Grand Aurelia in the least dramatic vehicle Daniel owned, which still meant a black SUV with tinted windows and seats softer than any furniture in Emily's apartment. She sat in the back with him because he had opened the door and then stepped aside, and refusing would have made it feel like she was afraid of a seat. Marco drove. Daniel remained quiet beside her, answering messages on his phone with one hand while the other rested near his knee, still and tense. Emily watched the city through the glass. Everything looked different from this height and silence. The bus gave her the city loud and close, full of elbows, perfume, fast food bags, and people pretending not to stare. Daniel's car gave her the city like a map under glass. Separated, controlled. She did not like it. Do you always move like this? She asked. Like what? Sealed away from everyone. Yes. That sounds awful. It is efficient. That is not a denial. Daniel put his phone away. You do not like quiet. I like quiet. I don't like cages with leather seats. He looked at the tinted window. Some cages are built to keep danger out. And some are built so powerful men never have to hear anyone tell them they are wrong. His eyes returned to her. You seem determined to handle that problem personally. I am community-minded. The corner of his mouth moved. At the hotel, they did not enter through the lobby. Daniel's men brought them through a side entrance near the executive offices. Emily recognized the hallway immediately. Staff corridors always smelled different from guest areas. Less perfume, more bleach and coffee. She had walked these halls thousands of times, often invisible, carrying room keys, extra linens, apologies, solutions. Now she walked beside Daniel Bennett, and every employee who saw her stopped like she had returned from the dead, holding hands with a thunderstorm. She was not holding his hand. She was very aware of that. Mara from housekeeping dropped a stack of towels onto a cart. Emily? Emily smiled softly. Hi? Mara's eyes flew to Daniel, then back. Are you okay? I am working on that. Before Mara could answer, Sebastian appeared at the end of the hall. He had the strange, polished look of a man who had not slept, but still expected lighting to flatter him. The second he saw Emily beside Daniel, his face lost color. Then his hotel smile arrived like a curtain dropping over a broken window. Mr. Bennett, he said, we were not expecting you. No, Daniel said, I imagine not. Sebastian's eyes flicked to Emily. Miss Carter, you are no longer authorized in staff areas. Emily felt the old fear rise, not huge, not dramatic, but trained into her. Managers had power over schedules, references, paychecks, dignity. Sebastian had held all of that yesterday. Her body remembered before her brain could argue. Daniel took one step forward. Emily touched his sleeve. It was barely contact, 2 fingers against dark fabric. He stopped. The hallway seemed to notice. Emily removed her hand and looked at Sebastian. I am here to collect copies of the termination paperwork, my final hours, and the incident report from last night. Sebastian's smile tightened. That will be sent through proper channels. Great. I am the proper channel. Print it. You have no right to demand internal hotel records. Daniel's voice entered softly. Careful. Emily looked at him. He stopped again, but his eyes stayed on Sebastian like a blade laid flat against skin. Sebastian swallowed. Mr. Bennett, with respect, this is an employee matter. Former employee, Emily corrected. You were very clear. His eyes flashed. She saw it then. Not just anger, not only fear. He hated that she was standing upright. He had escorted her out last night and expected her to stay gone, to become quiet under bills and shame. Instead, she had returned beside the one man in the city he could not politely dismiss. But Emily did not want Daniel to be the only reason Sebastian listened. She took a breath. You fired me less than an hour after an attempted murder happened in a hallway where I was a witness. You accused me of violating protocol, but you did not ask for a statement. You told me not to mention the camera. You said I saw nothing useful before I told you everything I saw. So either you are the worst crisis manager in luxury hospitality, which is very possible, or you needed me gone before someone asked better questions. Mara stared at her from beside the towel cart. 2 bellmen had stopped near the service elevator. Sebastian's face turned hard. You are making accusations you cannot support. Not yet, Emily said. Daniel looked at her then. There was something almost like pride in his expression, quickly hidden, but not quickly enough. Sebastian noticed too. His mouth curved faintly. Be careful, Emily. Powerful friends can make ordinary people feel brave for a while. Then the bill comes. Daniel moved so fast, Emily almost did not see it. 1 second he stood beside her. The next, he was close enough to Sebastian that the manager's back touched the wall. Daniel did not grab him, did not raise his voice. He simply stood there, and the entire hallway forgot it had oxygen. If there is a bill, Daniel said quietly, send it to me. Sebastian's eyes went wide. Emily stepped closer. Daniel. He did not look away from Sebastian. He threatened you. He warned me. Rich men call it advice. Daniel's jaw tightened. Emily lowered her voice. You promised. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Daniel stepped back. The hallway breathed again. Emily looked at Sebastian. Paperwork. Sebastian adjusted his jacket with unsteady hands. Wait here. No, Emily said. I'll come with you. That is not appropriate. Neither was firing me for saving a guest. Sebastian glanced at Daniel, then turned and walked toward his office. Emily followed. Daniel stayed 1 step behind her, and for once she let him. Sebastian's office looked exactly the same as it had the night before, which offended Emily in a strange way. Her life had cracked open, and his pens still sat in a perfect silver cup. He went behind the desk and began typing. Emily stood near the chair she had gripped while he fired her. She could still feel the ghost of that moment in her palm. Daniel did not sit. Men like him probably disliked putting themselves lower than anyone in a room. Or maybe he was still in pain and hiding it. His color had faded again, just slightly. Emily noticed, and hated that she noticed. Sebastian printed the termination notice, final hours sheet, and a brief incident summary, so clean and empty it was almost art. Emily read it once, then laughed softly. This says I created confusion during guest distress. You did. A man was unconscious on the floor, Sebastian. Confusion had arrived before I did. She read the next line and felt her anger cool into something sharper. This report does not mention the man in the gray jacket, because no such man has been confirmed. It does not mention the camera. Security found no issue with the camera. Daniel's voice was calm. That is a lie. Sebastian looked at him. Our internal systems were accessed at 12:16 last night from your office terminal. The room went silent. Sebastian did not move. Emily turned to Daniel. You knew that already. I suspected. Now I know. Sebastian's face changed by degrees. Anger first, then calculation, then insulted innocence. That is an outrageous claim. Daniel took out his phone and placed it on the desk. The screen showed a still image from a security log. Emily did not understand all of it, but she saw the date, the time, the camera number, and the user login. Crow.s. Sebastian looked at the screen for less than a second. That could be spoofed. Daniel said nothing. Sebastian's voice grew thinner. Do you have any idea what will happen if you attempt to intimidate hotel management based on stolen data? Emily leaned forward. Do you have any idea how tired I am of men doing terrible things and then saying paperwork makes them innocent? Sebastian looked at her, and the mask slipped. Only for a moment. You should have stayed out of it, he said. There it was. Not enough to be a confession. Enough to be truth. Daniel's phone rang before anyone could speak again. He glanced at the screen, and something in his face hardened. What? He answered. Emily watched him listen. His expression did not change much, but the room did. She felt it, the way cold sometimes arrived before a door opened. His eyes lifted to hers. Say that again, he said into the phone. The person on the other end spoke quickly. Daniel's gaze moved to Sebastian, then to the printed papers, then back to Emily. He ended the call. What happened? She asked. Daniel looked at Sebastian. Victor Sloan just sent flowers to Emily's apartment. Emily's blood turned cold. Daniel continued, voice quiet enough to terrify the room, and a note addressed to her daughter. For 1 second, Emily could not feel her hands. The hotel office, Sebastian's desk, Daniel's phone, the papers, the polished little cup of pens, all of it seemed to move far away. Lily. Emily reached for her own phone so fast she almost dropped it. She called Mrs. Alvarez, then remembered Lily was at school. She called the school office next, breath tight, heart punching so hard it made her vision blur. Daniel stepped closer, but did not touch her. The secretary answered on the third ring. PS 118. This is Diane. Emily's voice came out too calm. Too thin. This is Emily Carter, Lily Carter's mother. I need to confirm she is in class. 1 moment. 1 moment was nothing. 1 moment was forever. Emily stared at the wall, while every fear she had ever known gathered behind her ribs and became a single name. Lily, the secretary returned. Yes, Ms. Carter. Lily is in music right now. Emily closed her eyes. Her knees almost gave. She is safe? Yes. Is something wrong? Emily looked at Daniel. His face was still, but there was a darkness in him now that made the room feel smaller. No, Emily lied. I just needed to check. She hung up. For a heartbeat, nobody spoke. Then Emily turned to Sebastian. Did you give him my address? Sebastian's mouth opened. I don't know what you mean. Emily stepped toward him. Did you give Victor Sloan my address? I do not have access to former employee personal files from memory. That is not what I asked. Daniel's voice was low. Answer her. Sebastian looked between them, and for the first time since Emily had known him, he looked less like a manager and more like a man who had made a deal with something hungry, and now realized it might not stop eating where he wanted. I was told, Sebastian said slowly, that Miss Carter needed to be warned not to spread misinformation. Emily's breath left her. Daniel went absolutely still. Sebastian swallowed. I did not authorize contact with her child. Emily laughed once. It came out broken. Oh, well, that makes it classy. Emily, no, Her voice rose, then steadied. Do not say my name, like you have ever had the right. Sebastian's expression tightened. You do not understand the position I am in. You are right, I don't. Because if someone asked me to help threaten a child, I would simply not do that. It was not supposed to involve the child. And last night was not supposed to involve me. Funny how cowards keep making messes other people have to stand in. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He looked at it, then turned the screen toward Emily. A photo had come from Tessa. The flowers sat outside Emily's apartment door, wrapped in red paper. On top was a cream envelope. For Lily, from a friend of your mother's new friend. Emily felt something inside her go quiet. Not calm, not peace, something harder. Daniel spoke carefully. Tessa intercepted it. Your neighbor did not open the door. Lily never saw it. Emily nodded once. She turned back to Sebastian. I want my employee file. Printed. Sebastian blinked. What? I want every emergency contact form, address record, personnel document, and shift log showing who accessed my information in the last 24 hours. That is not something I can release without HR. Then call HR. It is Saturday. Then wake them. Daniel's eyes stayed on Emily, and for a brief second, she saw the shift in him. He had walked into this, thinking he needed to protect her. Now he was watching her choose the battlefield. Sebastian looked at Daniel for rescue or warning. Daniel gave him neither. Emily folded her arms. I lost my job last night. My daughter just became part of whatever ugly thing you helped bring to my door. I have time. Sebastian sat down slowly and reached for the phone. While he called HR, Emily stepped into the hall to breathe. Daniel followed, closing the office door enough to muffle Sebastian's voice. You should let me move you somewhere safe, he said. No. Emily. No. You cannot go back to that apartment tonight. My daughter's stuffed rabbit is there. Her school clothes are there. Her tooth fairy money is under her pillow. Her whole world is there. Then we bring those things. You do not get it. I am trying to. Emily turned on him, voice low and shaking now that Sebastian could not see. I have spent 8 years making sure Lily does not feel like we are always one accident away from losing everything, even when we were, especially when we were. I made that apartment feel safe, with thrift store lamps and pancakes, and a couch that sinks in the middle. I will not have her dragged out of it by men with guns because Victor Sloan sent flowers. Daniel listened. His face remained hard, but his eyes did not. And if the next message is not flowers, the words hit because they were true. Emily looked away. The hallway stretched around them, quiet now. Somewhere down the corridor, a vacuum hummed. Staff whispered. The hotel kept polishing itself, even after poison, lies, and threats had moved through its walls. I can put you in a hotel suite under another name, Daniel said. Not here. Somewhere clean. Staff I trust. No visible guards. Lily can think it is a small vacation. Emily laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. I cannot afford a small vacation. I am not asking you to. And there it is again. No. His voice sharpened, then softened when she looked at him. No. Not charity. Not ownership. A security measure caused by an attack against me. Which I got pulled into because I helped you. Yes. The word was quiet. Heavy. Daniel looked at the floor for one brief second, and for the first time, he seemed less like the man who owned half the city, and more like the man who had woken up alive and discovered the price had landed on a woman and her child. I am sorry, he said. Emily wanted the apology not to matter. It mattered. She leaned back against the wall. I need to pick Lily up myself. Yes. I need to tell her something that will not scare her. Yes. And I need my own room, wherever this place is, separate, with a lock. Daniel nodded. Of course. I mean it. I don't care how many women have fallen dramatically into your arms after seeing your expensive flaws. I am not one of them. The look he gave her was almost offended. My flaws have done nothing wrong. Despite everything, Emily laughed. It startled both of them. The sound was small, tired, and cracked around the edges, but it was real. Daniel watched her like laughter from her was a thing he did not know he had wanted until it happened. Emily stopped quickly. Do not look at me like that. Like what? Like you are about to become complicated. I was complicated before we met. That does not improve your case. Sebastian's office door opened. He stepped out holding a folder, face tight with humiliation and fear. HR approved a limited copy of relevant access logs. Emily took the folder before Daniel could. She opened it and scanned the pages. Her own employee profile had been accessed at 1:08 a.m., shortly before Sebastian fired her. Then again at 6:42 a.m. from the executive office printer station. Another entry showed an export of emergency contact details. Her stomach clenched at Lily's name, printed in black and white beneath hers. Daniel leaned slightly closer, but did not touch the papers. Who used the printer station? Emily asked. Sebastian's mouth tightened. Multiple managers have access. Who was here at 6:42? Silence. Daniel answered, Victor Sloan met with you this morning. Sebastian's face twitched. Emily looked at him. At my hotel? After you fired me? It was not your hotel. No, it never was it? Sebastian said nothing. Daniel's phone buzzed again, but he ignored it this time. His attention stayed on Emily. She closed the folder. I am going to pick up Lily early. Daniel nodded once. Marco will drive. No black SUV at the school gate. I have another car. Of course you do. They left through the service entrance. No one stopped them. Sebastian remained in the hallway holding nothing, looking smaller than Emily had ever seen him. She should have felt victorious. She did not. Victory was too clean a word for what had happened. She had proof now. Yes, a folder, a timeline, a name moving closer to her daughter. But proof did not pay rent, did not erase fear, did not make the city safer. On the way to the school, Daniel sat beside her in a dark blue sedan that still looked expensive enough to be suspicious, but less like a funeral procession. Emily held the folder on her lap with both hands. Her phone stayed open to Tessa's texts. Lily safe. School normal. No unusual activity. Daniel watched the street. Emily watched him. You look angry, she said. I am. At me? His head turned. No. At yourself. He did not answer. He did not answer. That was answer enough. Emily looked out the window. Do not make this about guilt. It is about responsibility. Responsibility is useful. Guilt is just ego wearing black. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You have a way of saying things that makes insulting me sound like a moral service. It might be my gift. No one speaks to me the way you do. That is because you surround yourself with people who like having kneecaps. His mouth almost smiled. Not only for that reason. Emily glanced at him. The moment softened too quickly, and she looked away before it could become something she did not have room for. They reached the school 10 minutes before dismissal. Emily went inside alone, after making Daniel promise to stay in the car. He agreed, which made Marco look deeply confused. Lily came out of music class, carrying a drawing of a purple castle, and immediately knew something had changed. Are we in trouble? She asked. Emily crouched in front of her. No. Then why are you using your serious eyebrows? My eyebrows are none of your business. They live on your face. I see them. Emily pulled her close and breathed in the smell of crayons, syrup, and child shampoo. We are going to stay somewhere different tonight. Lily pulled back. Why? Because the apartment needs to be checked. For bugs. Emily hesitated. Maybe. Lily's eyes widened. Like roaches. Yes, Emily said quickly. Like roaches. Very rude possible roaches. Lily made a disgusted face. Can we bring Bunny? Absolutely. And my crown? Yes. And the tooth fairy money? Of course. Lily studied her. Is the flower man helping? Emily sighed. A little. Does he have a purple tie yet? Not that I saw. Then he is not fully ready. Emily kissed her forehead. I will let him know. By the time they returned to the apartment, Tessa had removed the flowers and note and placed them inside a sealed bag. She introduced herself to Emily, but only waved at Lily from a distance as a friend from the building, which Lily accepted because children were used to adults being strange. Daniel did not come upstairs. That helped. Emily packed one bag for Lily, one for herself, and slipped the coffee tin with the napkin into the bottom of her tote, beneath socks, and a paperback romance novel she had been pretending she would have time to read for 6 months. Lily picked up Daniel's abandoned flowers from the hallway table. Can we keep these? Emily stared at them. Those are not from Victor. Those are from earlier. The flower man. Yes. Lily smelled one. Yes. Lily smelled one. They are very fancy. They are trying too hard. Can we put them in water anyway? It is not their fault he is weird. Emily looked at her daughter, then at the flowers. Fine, but if they start acting mysterious, they are gone. When they came downstairs, Daniel waited beside the car. He had changed something. At first Emily could not tell what. Then Lily gasped. His tie was purple. Not bright purple, a dark, elegant shade, tucked beneath a charcoal coat, but purple all the same. Lily looked thrilled. You listened. Daniel looked solemn. I was advised by an expert. Emily pressed her lips together to hide a smile. You own a purple tie. No. Did you send someone to buy one? Daniel did not answer. Lily nodded approvingly. Better. The Safe Hotel was not really a hotel. It was a quiet, private residence above a closed art gallery, in a neighborhood Emily had only walked through once, and immediately felt underdressed. The building had warm lights, thick doors, and an elevator that opened into a small apartment with cream walls, wide windows, and furniture that probably knew more about wealth than Emily ever would. But it was not cold. That surprised her. There were books on the shelves, soft blankets on the sofa, and a kitchen stocked with normal food, not strange rich people items that required explaining. Lily ran straight to the window. Mummy, we can see a park. Emily set down the bags slowly. We can. Daniel remained near the door. You have the apartment to yourselves. Tessa will be downstairs. Marco will be outside. No one comes up unless you approve them. Emily looked at him. Where will you be? Nearby. That is vague. Yes. Annoying. Also yes. Lily turned from the window. Are you staying for dinner? Emily's heart did something stupid. Daniel looked at her, not Lily, asking silently. Emily should have said no. She had enough danger for one day. Enough new things. Enough of his eyes and careful pauses, and the terrible way he listened, like every word she said mattered. But Lily was looking at him with open curiosity, not fear, and Daniel, for all his darkness, stood at the door, as if he would leave without resentment, if Emily asked. 1 hour, Emily said, and no Mafia talk at the table. Daniel considered that. What counts as Mafia talk? Anything involving docs, poison, revenge, secret files, men named Victor, men named Marco, and whatever crime-adjacent nonsense you consider casual conversation. Lily raised her hand. Can we talk about dogs? Daniel looked surprised. Dogs are allowed. Good. Do you have one? No. Emily saw Marco outside the open door shift, like he strongly disagreed. Daniel looked toward him. "Do not start." Emily laughed before she could stop herself. "You have a dog." "I know a dog." "That means yes. It is complicated." Lily brightened. "Everything with you is complicated." Daniel looked at Emily. "I am beginning to hear that often." Dinner was pasta from the kitchen pantry, because Emily refused to order anything expensive, and Daniel claimed he did not care what he ate, which she believed only because he looked like a man who forgot meals more often than he enjoyed them. Lily talked through half the meal about school, her tooth, the syrup kingdom, and why adults always said maybe when they meant no. Daniel listened to her with the same unsettling attention he gave Emily, though softer around the edges. He answered every question seriously, including whether he had ever fought a shark, whether he owned a castle, and whether purple ties made people nicer. "No," he said to the last one, "but they may make people more carefully judged." Lily accepted this as wisdom. Emily watched them across the small table, feeling both grateful and terrified. It was too easy to imagine safety in this warm apartment, with the city glowing beyond the windows, and Daniel Bennett quietly letting an 8-year-old explain the politics of recess. Too easy to forget that flowers addressed to Lily had arrived at her door that morning. Too easy to forget that Daniel's world had already reached inside hers. After dinner, Lily fell asleep on the sofa halfway through a cartoon, Bunny tucked under her chin. Emily covered her with a blanket and carried the dishes to the sink. Daniel stood to help. She stared at him. "Do you know how to wash dishes?" "I have seen it done." That is the most Daniel Bennett answer possible. He rolled up his sleeves. "Teach me." Emily should have made a joke. Instead, her eyes caught the mark on his wrist. Now uncovered, it looked darker than before, a faint bruise around a small red center. She reached for his hand before thinking. Daniel went still. Emily froze too, her fingers barely touching his wrist. The apartment seemed to quiet around them. Lily slept softly in the next room. Water ran into the sink. Daniel looked down at Emily's hand on his skin, then at her face. There was no flirtation in the moment, not exactly. Just awareness, sharp and careful and warm at the edges. Emily let go first. "Sorry. Don't be. It looks worse. It feels worse." That was almost honest. "Congratulations." His mouth moved. "I am learning." She turned off the water and dried her hands. Then she went to her tote bag, pulled out the coffee tin, and opened it. Daniel watched, but did not approach. Emily removed the folded napkin and held it between them. "I kept this," she said. "From the floor, under your wrist." Daniel's expression changed completely. Not surprise, confirmation. He took one step closer. "May I?" Emily handed it to him. He did not touch the stained corner. He held the clean edge and studied it. "Naomi needs this tonight. Will it tell you who did it? It may tell me what was used. That tells me who had access. And Victor?" Daniel's eyes lifted to hers. "Victor prefers fear." This was elegant. Sebastian is not elegant enough. No. So there is someone else. The words hung between them. That was the shape of the next fear. Not Victor alone. Not Sebastian alone. A third hand. Someone smart enough to use the hotel, poison Daniel, move cameras, threaten Emily, and still leave everyone looking in the wrong direction. Daniel folded the napkin into a clean evidence sleeve from his coat pocket. Of course he had one. Emily did not even ask. His phone rang. He answered quietly, listened, then walked toward the window. Emily watched his reflection in the glass, the purple tie Lily had chosen, the bruised wrist, the tension in his shoulders. When he turned back, his face was colder. "What?" Emily asked. Sebastian ran. Emily's stomach tightened. From the hotel. From the city, if he is smart. And if he is not? Daniel slipped the evidence sleeve into his coat. Then Victor's people find him before we do. Emily looked at Lily sleeping on the sofa, then back at Daniel. We need him alive. Daniel's gaze held hers. She had said we. They both noticed. Outside, far below the apartment windows, a black car rolled slowly past the gallery once, then disappeared around the corner. Daniel saw it too. The softness left him instantly. He moved toward the lights and switched them off, plunging the apartment into the gentle blue glow of the city. Emily's heart kicked hard. Daniel crossed the room and stood between the window and the sofa where Lily slept, his body turning into a wall without a word. "What is it?" Emily whispered. His voice came back low, calm, and full of danger. "Someone found us." Someone found them, and for one terrifying second, Emily Carter forgot how to breathe. The apartment had gone dark, except for the city lights bleeding through the windows, blue and silver, and soft enough to make the room look like a dream that had learned to be afraid. Lily slept on the sofa with Bunny tucked under her chin, one small hand curled near her cheek, unaware that the world outside had just pressed its face against the glass. Daniel stood between her and the window without being asked. He did not look dramatic. He did not reach for a gun in some wild, movie-like way. He simply became still, and in that stillness, Emily saw the man the city whispered about. Not the tired man at her door with flowers. Not the strange man wearing a purple tie because her daughter said he should. This was Daniel Bennett, as other dangerous men knew him. Quiet. Awake. Ready. Emily moved toward Lily, but Daniel lifted one hand. Not to stop her, to slow her. "Stay low," he said. His voice was so calm it made her skin prickle. Emily crouched beside the sofa and touched Lily's shoulder. "Baby," she whispered, "wake up for me." Lily stirred, frowning in her sleep. "Is it school?" "No. Quiet game." Lily's eyes opened. She knew Emily's voice too well. The fear found her before the words did. "Mummy?" Emily put a finger to her lips. "We are going to move very quietly. No questions until I say." Lily nodded fast, too fast, her little face pale in the blue window light. Emily hated that, hated every man who had helped bring this fear into her daughter's eyes. She picked up Bunny, slipped Lily's shoes onto her feet without tying them, and pulled the blanket around her shoulders. Daniel watched the street below while speaking softly into his phone. "Marco, north side, no lights. Tessa gets the child first." Emily's head snapped toward him. "No." His eyes cut to hers. "She stays with me," Emily whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. Outside, the dark car rolled past the gallery again. Slower this time. It was not looking for parking. It was looking for weakness. Daniel stepped closer, voice low enough that Lily could not hear. "If shooting starts, the safest place for Lily is away from us. If shooting starts, the safest place for Lily is not in a stranger's arms while I am somewhere else. Tessa is not a stranger. She is to Lily." Daniel looked at Lily. Lily stared back with wide eyes and a stuffed rabbit pressed to her chest. Something shifted in his expression, just a crack in the hard surface. He understood then that safety was not only about distance from danger. Safety was also the person a child reached for when the dark became too big. He nodded once. "Together, then." Emily swallowed. "Thank you. Do not thank me for listening too late." There was no time to answer. A sound came from below, not a crash, not a shout, just the faintest scrape near the gallery's back entrance. Daniel heard it. Emily did too. He moved to the kitchen, opened one drawer, and removed a small black device taped beneath it. Emily stared at him. "Did you put that there?" "Yes." "When?" "Before dinner." "You hid a weapon in the kitchen." "Tracker jammer." "That does not make me less annoyed." "It may make you less dead." I hate that you have a point. He pressed a button. A tiny green light turned red. Somewhere outside, a phone signal must have vanished because a man cursed under the window. Daniel's mouth barely moved. Not a smile. Something colder. Amateurs, he said. Work. Emily lifted Lily into her arms, even though Lily was too big to be carried for long. Her daughter wrapped both arms around Emily's neck and held tight. Emily felt the familiar weight of her, warm and solid and everything. Lily's knees pressed against her hip. Emily's back protested immediately, but fear gave the body rude little miracles. Daniel opened a narrow door behind the bookshelves that Emily had not noticed before. She stared. Of course there is a secret door. It is a service passage. In a private apartment above an art gallery. Yes, that is a secret door. Daniel looked like this was not the moment for vocabulary, but Emily did not care. If she was going to run from possible murderers, she was going to name architecture accurately. The passage behind the shelves was narrow and dark, with metal stairs leading downward. Tessa waited at the bottom, holding a small flashlight shaded with her palm. She looked up at Emily first, not Daniel, which helped more than Emily expected. "Hi, Lily," Tessa whispered. "I'm Tessa. I'm going to walk in front so nobody trips. Your mom is right behind me the whole time." Lily nodded against Emily's shoulder. Daniel followed last, closing the hidden door behind them. The passage smelled like old stone and dust. Their footsteps were soft on the stairs. Above them, something thudded inside the apartment. Emily flinched. Lily made a tiny sound. Daniel's voice came from behind them, low and steady. "They are in the wrong room." "That is comforting for about 3 seconds," Emily whispered. "Then use the 3 seconds." They moved. At the bottom of the stairs, the passage opened into the back of the closed gallery. Paintings covered the walls, quiet and expensive in the dark. A woman's face in one large canvas looked down at Emily with calm grey eyes, as if she had seen many frightened people pass beneath her frame and had learned not to judge. Tessa led them through a storage room, then out a rear door into a narrow alley where a plain blue car waited with the engine running. Not black, not shiny, not Daniel's style. Emily almost laughed. "You own normal cars too?" Daniel opened the back door. "I borrow them from people with better instincts." Marco sat in the driver's seat, looking furious and relieved. Lily climbed in first, then Emily slid beside her. Daniel got in on the other side, not touching them, but close enough that his body blocked the window. Tessa took the front passenger seat. The car pulled away with no headlights for half a block, then merged into traffic like any other late-night vehicle. Behind them, 2 black SUVs appeared at the alley mouth too late. Lily whispered, "Were those bad guys?" Emily's throat tightened. Daniel looked at her, leaving the answer to the mother, not taking it, not softening it into a lie before she could choose. Emily brushed Lily's hair back. "They are people who scared us, and that is not okay." "Are we safe now?" Emily looked out the rear window. The SUVs did not follow. "Not yet." "We are safer," she said. Lily thought about that. "That means yes and no." Emily gave a broken little smile. "You are getting very good at those." Daniel looked down, and for 1 second, Emily thought pain crossed his face. Not from the poison, from the sight of a child learning the language of danger too early. They drove to a place Emily never would have guessed existed inside the city. It was an old firehouse on a quiet block, its brick front covered in ivy, its big red doors replaced by dark glass. Inside, it had been turned into something between an office, a fortress, and a home for people who did not trust either word. The first floor had desks, monitors, maps, and men and women moving with quiet purpose. No one stared at Emily's body. No one looked at Lily like an inconvenience. No one asked why a guest services supervisor with pancake batter on one sleeve had been brought into Daniel Bennett's private world. they simply made space. A woman with grey curls and sharp eyes brought Lily hot chocolate in a mug shaped like a cat. "I am Naomi," she said. "I am a lawyer, which means I argue with grown-ups professionally." Lily looked impressed. "Do you win?" "Frequently enough to remain annoying." Emily liked her immediately. Naomi took the evidence sleeve from Daniel, then took the coffee tin from Emily with careful hands after Emily showed her where the napkin had been hidden. She did not laugh at the oatmeal. She did not make Emily feel foolish. She only nodded and said, "Smart." Dry, sealed, ordinary enough to be ignored. Emily exhaled. Finally, someone appreciates my pantry-based crime prevention. Daniel's mouth moved, but he stayed near the doorway, watching the room, watching the phones, watching every entrance as if sleep was a habit he had given up years ago. Lily was settled in a small side room, with Tessa, cartoons, and the cat mug. Emily sat at a long table across from Daniel and Naomi, while the night became very old around them. Files appeared, screens filled with hotel floor plans, event guest lists, security logs, delivery schedules, and photos from the charity auction. Emily recognized faces she had checked in, lied to, smiled at, and directed toward restrooms. Men with perfect tuxedos and hollow eyes. Women with diamonds resting against throats that never had to swallow fear. Naomi placed a photo of Victor Sloan on the table. "He denies contact with Sebastian Crow. He lies," Emily said. Daniel looked at her. "You saw them together?" "Not together, but Victor arrived early. Sebastian personally escorted him to the closed back lounge. That lounge is not on the guest route. It is used when the hotel wants someone important to feel like rules are only suggestions." Later, Sebastian changed the staffing near the West Service Hall. He moved Mara to ballroom coat check, even though she was assigned to corridor rotation. He moved Kevin from security to valet, because one of the donors complained about waiting. He said it was because we were short-staffed, but we were not. We had 2 floaters sitting in the pantry because he forgot about them. Naomi stared at her. "You remember all that?" Emily shrugged. "I made the schedule work after he broke it. Of course I remember." Daniel leaned back slightly, watching her like she had just opened a locked safe with a hairpin. Emily did not like the warmth that rose in her face. "What?" "Nothing. That was not a nothing face. I was thinking Sebastian made a mistake underestimating you. Lots of people do. He can wait in line." Naomi smiled faintly, then slid over another photo. A grainy still from the hotel corridor, the man in the grey server jacket. "This person?" Emily leaned closer. The image was poor. The angle was bad. Half his face was turned from the camera, but Emily remembered the walk. Not hurried, not nervous. Smooth, too smooth. "Yes," she said. "That is him." Daniel's hand flattened on the table. "Elias Crane." Naomi's face changed. "You're sure?" Daniel nodded. "He works for no one permanently. Poison, staged accidents, political cleanups. Expensive. Quiet." Emily looked between them. "So Victor hired him?" "Maybe," Naomi said. Daniel's gaze remained on the photo. "Or someone hired him and let Victor think he was in charge." Emily felt the next piece click into place. Someone like Sebastian. Daniel's eyes lifted. Emily pointed at the floor plan. "No, not because Sebastian is powerful enough. He is not. That man lives for proximity to power, not power itself. But he could give access. He could move staff, change cameras, open service doors, export my file. He would not hire a professional killer. He would help one if someone made him feel important enough." Naomi tapped the table slowly. "That sounds like him." Emily leaned closer to the hotel floor plan. "Where is Sebastian now?" "Running," Daniel said. Emily shook her head. "No." Everyone looked at her. She touched the map near the Grand Aurelia. "Sebastian is not a running man. He likes controlled rooms. He likes polished surfaces. He likes being able to say he had no choice because the room was too important to fail. If he panicked, he would go somewhere that still makes him feel above ordinary people. Daniel studied her. Where? Emily looked at the event calendar Naomi had printed. Her eyes caught a familiar name, the Harrington Civic Trust Dinner. Same donor class, same politicians, same people from the auction, pretending last night had been an unfortunate medical incident and not the edge of a war. There, Emily said, the Harrington dinner. Sebastian was obsessed with it for weeks. Victor is listed as a sponsor. If Sebastian has something to trade, he will go where Victor's people are already protected by money and tuxedos. Daniel looked at the listing, and something cold and approving moved through his face. The event starts in 16 hours. Emily sat back. Then we have 16 hours. No, Daniel said. Emily turned to him slowly. Be careful. His jaw tightened. Emily. No. I know that tone. That is the tone men use before they explain why brave women should stay home while important things happen. This is not about bravery. It is about risk. Everything is risk. Rent is risk. Walking home at night is risk. Raising a daughter alone is risk. Going to the doctor when your body is already being judged before you speak is risk. You just call it risk when it enters your world. The room went quiet. Daniel took the words as if each one landed where it was meant to. He did not argue. That was the thing about him that kept undoing her. He could frighten a hallway silent with one step, but when she told him the truth, he listened like truth outranked him. I do not want you hurt, he said. Emily's voice softened despite herself. I know. You have Lily. Yes. And that is exactly why I am not hiding, while men who know her name keep walking free. Daniel looked toward the side room, where Lily had finally fallen asleep again under Tessa's watch. His face was tired now, the edges of the poison and the night catching up with him. If you do this, you do it with your rules written down. Emily blinked. What? Your rules. What you will and will not do. Where you will be. When you leave. Who stays with Lily. What authority you have to stop the plan if it puts workers at risk. Paper does not change my mood, remember? Emily stared at him. Naomi looked delighted. I can draft that. Emily's throat tightened in a way she did not expect. It was such a strange kind of respect. Not flowers, not money, not a man saying he would protect her by deciding for her. Rules, terms, a written place for her voice. She looked down at her hands. They were still trembling slightly, but not from weakness, from everything she was holding back. My first rule, Emily said, no innocent hotel workers get used as bait. Daniel nodded. Agreed. My second rule, if Lily asks where I am, no one lies and says I abandoned her or went somewhere dangerous for fun. Naomi wrote quickly. Agreed. My third rule, you do not kill Sebastian in front of me. Daniel was silent for 1 second too long. Emily looked at him. Daniel, I heard you. That was not agreement. His mouth tightened. Agreed. And Victor? Daniel's eyes cooled. Victor will face consequences. Legal ones? Naomi gave a dry laugh. In Daniel's world, legal is a wide hallway. Emily did not smile. Daniel. He looked at her, and she saw the fight inside him, not between good and evil. That would have been simpler. It was between the man he had trained himself to be and the man he wanted to become when she was watching. Finally, he said, if legal consequences are possible, we use them first. Emily nodded. Good. First, Daniel repeated. That is not as good. It is honest. Emily sighed. You are exhausting. You keep telling me. And yet you continue. Something like a smile touched his face. Very small, very real. The plan formed slowly through the early morning, then through the pale light of day. Naomi traced the toxin residue to a rare compound used in high-end industrial cleaning agents, the kind licensed only to a few private restoration companies. One of them had been contracted by the Grand Aurelia 2 days before the auction. The request had not come through normal hotel maintenance. It had been approved by Sebastian's office, paid through a shell company linked to Victor, and delivered by a courier whose photo matched Elias Crane. It was not enough to convict everyone, not yet, but it was enough to pull a thread. By late afternoon, Emily had slept 90 minutes in a chair beside Lily and woken with a stiff neck, an angry spine, and the stubborn feeling that her life had become a movie she would have turned off for being unrealistic. Lily ate toast at the firehouse kitchen counter, while Tessa taught her a card trick. Emily watched them and tried not to cry from gratitude. Daniel entered, wearing a black suit and somehow the purple tie again. Emily looked at it. "You kept the tie." Lily approved it. "You are very vulnerable to 8-year-old fashion criticism." "I am becoming aware." Lily looked up. "It makes you look less like a thundercloud." Daniel considered that. Progress. Emily felt the laugh rise, then fade. The Harrington dinner was 2 hours away. Sebastian might be there. Victor would almost certainly be there. Elias Crane could be anywhere. And Emily, somehow, was going back into a room full of powerful people who would look at her and see nothing worth fearing. Let them. This time, Daniel did not bring her through a side door like a secret. They arrived at the Harrington building through the front entrance. Emily wore a simple black dress Naomi had produced from somewhere, soft enough to move in, plain enough to feel like herself, elegant enough that no one could pretend she had wandered in by mistake. It fit her body instead of fighting it. That alone felt almost luxurious. She looked at herself once in the car window and did not apologize to her reflection. Daniel noticed. "You look beautiful," he said. Emily's heart gave a stupid, inconvenient jump. "Do not sound surprised." "I am not surprised." "Good. I am angry." That made her turn. "At what?" "That anyone ever made you feel like rooms were not improved by you entering them." Emily looked away because the sentence was too direct, and she had no defense ready. That was dangerously smooth. It was not practiced. "That is worse." He held out his arm as they reached the entrance, then stopped halfway, leaving the choice there. Emily stared at his arm. A dozen cameras waited near the doors. Wealthy guests moved around them in silk and dark suits. Somewhere inside, Victor Sloane was probably smiling. Somewhere inside, Sebastian might be sweating through a lie. Emily thought of every room she had entered, trying to take up less space, trying to make her body seem smaller, her voice softer, her needs lighter. Then she placed her hand on Daniel's arm, not behind him, beside him. The reaction was immediate. Cameras turned, conversations stumbled. A woman in emerald silk whispered behind her hand. A councilman, who had once complained to Emily about water temperature, stared at her as if she had risen from beneath the marble floor. Emily lifted her chin. Daniel leaned slightly closer. "Are you all right?" "No," she said, "but I am walking." His eyes softened. "That counts." Inside, the Harrington Hall glittered, much like the Grand Aurelia had, with chandeliers, white flowers, and money, pretending it was kindness. But tonight, Emily saw the wires under the performance, the guards near the service door, the nervous staff carrying trays too quickly, the same donor faces rearranged into fresh sympathy. Victor Sloane stood near the center of the room, smiling with a glass in his hand. When he saw Daniel, his smile widened. When he saw Emily beside him, it stopped being comfortable. Good, Emily thought. Sebastian was near the west wall. He looked terrible. Still polished, but barely. His face was pale, his eyes too bright, one hand wrapped around a drink he had not tasted. He saw Emily and Daniel, and for 1 second he looked like a man considering prayer. Then Victor touched his elbow. There, that was the connection. Emily did not point. She did not gasp. She simply squeezed Daniel's arm once. "I see him," Daniel said softly. "No charging. I do not charge. You loom aggressively. That may be accurate." They separated by inches, not distance. Daniel moved toward Victor, with Naomi at his side, drawing attention like a storm crossing polished floors. Emily moved toward the service corridor, where a nervous young waiter nearly dropped a tray of champagne. "Hey," Emily said gently. He looked at her, startled. "Ma'am?" She almost laughed. "Ma'am." Yesterday she had been staff. Tonight she was suddenly ma'am because of a dress and Daniel Bennett's arm. The world was so stupid, it almost deserved itself. "You are short 2 servers on the south aisle," she said, "and the west corridor is blocked by guests pretending not to smoke." The waiter blinked. "How did you—" "Hotels are hotels. Where is your event supervisor?" He pointed. Emily found the supervisor, a sharp-looking woman named Janine, who was clearly 5 minutes from a private breakdown. Emily told her, calmly and quickly, that the service flow near the west door was wrong. The camera above the donor display had a blind spot, and one man in a grey uniform did not match the rest of the catering staff because his jacket buttons were matte instead of brass. Janine stared. "Who are you?" Emily smiled. "Someone who got fired from a very similar disaster yesterday." Janine did not ask another question. Smart woman. Within minutes, the staff pattern shifted. Trays moved differently. The west corridor cleared. A camera angle opened. Men who had expected ordinary workers to remain confused suddenly found the room quietly reorganizing around them. Emily saw Elias Crane near the service entrance. He saw the change too. His face remained calm, but his path altered. Emily touched the small microphone Naomi had clipped beneath her dress strap. Grey jacket moving toward kitchen hall. Daniel's voice came through her earpiece, low and controlled. "I see him. Do not grab him yet. He is the man who poisoned me. And he is walking toward Sebastian." Silence. Then Daniel said, with effort, "I am listening." Emily moved along the edge of the room, taking a champagne glass she did not drink, so she would look less like prey. Sebastian had slipped toward the closed service hall, sweat shining near his hairline. Elias approached him from the other side. Victor remained in the main room, speaking to a judge, but his eyes kept flicking toward the corridor. Emily followed at a distance. The service hallway was quieter, lined with carts, stacked chairs, and one camera Janine had just turned back to its proper angle. Sebastian and Elias stopped near a storage door. Emily stood behind a linen rack, heart hammering, microphone warm against her skin. Sebastian's voice shook. "You said she would disappear." Elias answered softly. "She became inconvenient. You threatened her child. That was not the arrangement. The arrangement changed. I gave access. I moved the staff. I erased the camera. I exported the file. I did everything Victor asked." Emily's hand tightened around the champagne glass. There it was. Elias stepped closer. "Then do one more thing." "No. Victor is disappointed. Victor is out of control." Elias laughed quietly. Victor was never in control. Sebastian went silent. Emily felt the meaning of that sentence move down her spine. Elias continued. "Mr. Sloan paid. Someone else planned. You do not need to know more." Sebastian's voice dropped to a whisper. "Who?" A shadow moved behind Emily. She turned too late. A hand closed around her wrist. Not hard enough to break. Hard enough to warn. Victor Sloan stood beside her, smiling like a man greeting an old friend. "Emily Carter," he said, "you really should have stayed at the front desk." Fear moved through her fast and sharp, but beneath it came anger, stronger and cleaner. She thought of Lily's name on an envelope. She thought of the flowers. She thought of Sebastian saying she saw nothing useful. Emily lifted her chin. You really should have used hotel staff who know how cameras work. Victor's smile thinned. Daniel's voice came through her earpiece, colder than she had ever heard it. Emily. Victor glanced at her ear. His hand tightened. Clever. Emily looked past him. Daniel had entered the corridor from the far end, his eyes fixed on Victor's hand around her wrist. For a second, the whole building seemed to hold its breath. Emily saw the violence in him rise, immediate and absolute. No, she said. Victor laughed. Are you giving orders to him? Yes, Emily said. And right now, he is listening. Daniel stopped. Every muscle in his body looked carved from restraint. Victor's smile flickered. He had expected the monster. He had not prepared for the man who could hold himself still because Emily asked. Naomi appeared behind Daniel with 2 security officers and Janine, the event supervisor, who looked like she had found a new reason to live, and it was ruining powerful men. Let her go, Naomi said. Victor kept his grip. This is a private misunderstanding. No, Emily said, and lifted the champagne glass in her free hand. She had not drunk from it. She had been holding it since the ballroom. She threw it, not at Victor, at the wall camera. The glass shattered inches beneath it. Everyone flinched and looked up. The camera light blinked red. Recording. Emily smiled without warmth. Sorry. Guest services habit. I like people looking at the right thing. Victor's face changed. Daniel moved then, not wildly, not brutally, just fast. One moment Victor held Emily's wrist. The next, Daniel had him pinned against the wall, with one hand twisted behind his back, his face turned toward the camera he had forgotten to fear. Emily stepped away, rubbing her wrist. Are you hurt? Daniel asked, not looking away from Victor. No. His jaw tightened. Say it again. I am not hurt. Only then did he breathe. Naomi moved past them and opened the storage door. 2 of Daniel's people pulled Sebastian out from inside, alive but shaking, with Elias Crane held beside him by Tessa, who had appeared so quietly, Emily almost smiled. Tessa looked at Emily and gave a tiny nod. Lily was safe. Emily understood without words. Naomi raised her phone. Sebastian Crow's confession was recorded. Elias Crane's statements were recorded. Victor Sloan assaulting a witness was recorded. And because Mr. Sloan was foolish enough to involve a civic trust dinner with judges, council members, and half the city press in attendance, we have an unusually enthusiastic audience for due process. Victor's eyes burned. You have no idea who you are touching. Daniel leaned closer. I know exactly who I am touching. Emily stepped beside him. Then let the lawyers touch him next. Daniel's eyes flicked to her. The old Daniel wanted blood. She could see it. Maybe part of him always would. But he looked at her, then at Victor, then at the camera. Slowly, he released him into the hands of the security officers Naomi had already turned into witnesses. Victor laughed once as they pulled him away. You think this ends with me? Emily's stomach tightened. Daniel said nothing. Naomi looked at Elias Crane. Who hired you? Elias smiled faintly. I survive by not answering that. Tessa shifted his arm slightly. Not enough to break, enough to remind. Elias's smile faded. Before he could speak, a commotion rose from the ballroom. Phones began ringing. Reporters moved toward the corridor. Someone had released the first documents. Naomi, apparently, did not believe in waiting for villains to finish their speeches. Donation records, shell company payments, hotel access logs, poison delivery invoices, and Sebastian's employee file export all began landing in inboxes across the room. The elite city event, turned from gala to crime scene in less than 4 minutes. Emily stepped back and watched powerful people panic with expensive posture. It was strangely beautiful. Not because it was clean. It was not. Innocent workers still had to answer questions. Janine had to calm frightened servers. Hotel staff from the Grand Aurelia would need protection from blame. Lily would still wake up tomorrow knowing the flower man had brought danger close to breakfast. Daniel would still be Daniel. Emily would still have bills, a lost job, and a daughter who deserved more normal than this. But something had shifted. Men who had always counted on silence had spoken in front of cameras. A manager who thought firing a woman erased her had been dragged out by the truth she remembered. A businessman who thought kindness made people weak had been caught because Emily had knelt on a marble floor and decided a life was a life. Later, after statements, lawyers, police who suddenly became very professional once cameras multiplied, and Naomi arguing with 3 officials at once, Emily found Daniel outside on a balcony overlooking the city. Dawn was beginning again, pale and gold along the rooftops. It seemed impossible that only a day and a half had passed since he had blocked her front desk. He stood with both hands on the stone railing. His purple tie was loosened. His face looked tired, in a way power could not hide. Emily stepped beside him. "You did not kill anyone." "No." "Was it hard?" "Yes." She nodded. "Thank you for not lying." He looked at her then. "Are you all right?" "No." His face tightened. "But I think I will be," she said. Daniel looked out at the city. Victor will be arrested. Sebastian has already offered cooperation. Elias is less loyal than expensive. Naomi will make sure your firing is reversed publicly, with compensation. Emily gave him a look. "You said compensation like it is a tiny snack." "It will be more than a tiny snack. I do not want hush money." "It is not hush money. It is consequence money. That is not a legal term. It should be." Despite herself, she smiled. Daniel turned fully toward her. "You do not have to work for me. You do not have to stand near me. You do not owe me anything, because I helped clean up danger I brought into your life." Emily studied him in the soft dawn light. That sounded practiced. "No," he said quietly. "Needed." The honesty reached her before she could guard against it. "I know," she said. "I am not an easy man to be near. I noticed. My world is not gentle." "I noticed that too. But I can learn where your lines are. I can listen when you say no. I can stand beside you without standing over you. If you want nothing from me after this, I will still protect you from the damage that remains." Emily's throat tightened. There had been a time when words like that would have sounded like a fairy tale. Then life had taught her fairy tales often came with locked rooms, unpaid bills, and men who mistook need for permission. But Daniel was not offering rescue as ownership. Not now. He was standing beside her, with his hands visible, his power held back by choice, waiting for her answer like it mattered more than his pride. Emily looked at the city. "I do not know what I want yet." Daniel nodded. "Then we start there." "You are very calm about not getting an answer." "I am not calm." "No? No." His eyes stayed on hers. "I am terrified you will decide I am not worth the trouble." Emily's heart went soft and scared at the same time. "You are a lot of trouble." "I know. And my daughter comes first." "She should. And I will not shrink myself to fit into your life. I would not ask you to. I need time. I can wait." Emily looked at him carefully. "Can you?" Daniel gave the faintest smile. "I survived poison, Victor Sloan, and your daughter's review of my wardrobe. I may endure patience." She laughed then. Really laughed. Tired, shaky, but real. Daniel looked at her like sunrise had chosen the wrong direction and come from her instead. Weeks passed before the city stopped talking about the Harrington dinner. Victor Sloane's empire cracked loudly. Sebastian Crowe became a cooperating witness, though Emily suspected cooperation was just fear, wearing a cleaner suit. The Grand Aurelia issued a public apology, written by lawyers, and drained of anything human, so Emily wrote her own statement and posted it beside theirs. Naomi called it unwise. Daniel called it impressive. Lily called it too many commas. Emily did not return to the front desk. She used the settlement to pay rent 6 months ahead, buy Lily the winter coat with silver stars she had been pretending was too sparkly, and start a small consulting business for hotels and event spaces that wanted to understand what their staff already saw. Worker safety, emergency flow, blind spots, guest behavior, the things powerful people missed because they were too busy looking at themselves. Her first client was Janine. Her second was a hospital fundraiser. Her third, because Daniel was impossible, was one of his restaurants, though Emily made him sign a contract saying he could not hover, threaten, rearrange furniture, or appear silently in doorways while she worked. He broke the doorway rule twice. She billed him extra. Lily adored Tessa, tolerated Marco, and continued advising Daniel's wardrobe with the seriousness of a royal appointment. Daniel accepted every note. One afternoon, he arrived at Emily's apartment wearing a yellow pocket square, and Lily declared it brave but confusing. Emily laughed so hard she had to sit down. Daniel came by often, but never without asking. Sometimes he brought dinner. Sometimes he brought files for Emily to review because he had discovered, to no one's surprise but his own, that she was better at reading a room than most of his intelligence network. Sometimes he simply sat at her kitchen table while Lily did homework and Emily answered emails, his presence quiet and large and strangely peaceful. He did not become harmless. Emily would never lie to herself about that. Daniel Bennett was still feared by the city. Men still lowered their voices when he entered a room. Cars still slowed when his name passed through certain conversations. But around Emily, he learned to soften without becoming false. Around Lily, he learned that power sometimes meant sitting through a school play on a chair too small for him, while wearing a paper crown, because the Queen demanded it. And Emily changed too. Not because Daniel gave her power, because he was the first powerful man who looked at what she already had and did not call it too much. She stopped apologizing before entering rooms. She stopped laughing off insults about her body before they could hurt. She bought clothes that fit the woman she was instead of the shame other people handed her. She let herself be seen beside Daniel in restaurants, at meetings, walking down bright hotel corridors where people suddenly remembered her name. But she never walked behind him, not once. One evening, months after the auction, the Grand Aurelia invited Emily back as an outside consultant for a safety review. She almost refused. Then she thought about the marble floor, the turned camera, the staff who had whispered her name when she returned, and she accepted. Daniel offered to come with her. Emily said no. Then she changed her mind. Not because she needed him, because she wanted to see what it felt like to enter that lobby by choice. They walked through the front doors at exactly 7:14 p.m., though Emily did not notice the time until later. The marble still shone. The chandeliers still glittered like trapped stars. White orchids still stood in tall glass vases, pretending nothing ugly had ever happened beneath them. People turned. Of course they did. Daniel Bennett entering a room still did that. But this time, Emily saw something else happen too. People noticed her. Not as staff. Not as a scandal. Not as the woman who saved him, as Emily Carter, consultant, mother, witness, survivor, woman with a sharp mouth and soft heart, and a body that had carried her through every hard day people underestimated. Daniel paused near the front desk, just as he had the first night. He looked at her, amused. Am I blocking something important? Emily remembered the tired woman behind the desk, the navy blazer, the aching feet, the name tag, the faint smile from a dangerous stranger. She remembered kneeling on marble while everyone else hesitated. She remembered losing everything before realizing the night had not taken her life apart. It had opened it. She looked at Daniel Bennett, the most feared man in the city, who now waited for her answer like it mattered. "Yes," she said, "you are blocking the front desk." His smile came slowly, real and warm and only for her. Then he stepped aside. Emily walked forward first. Daniel walked beside her. And somewhere beneath the glittering cruelty of expensive rooms, kindness remained the thing no one had known how to stop.